record there. Alright, so what you see in front of you, or in the bottom right corner, is my test sprite that I made this morning. I wanted to make sure that, one, I could still make bead sprites. I haven't done it in about 2 years. And two, that I had a setup that would work that you'd be able to see and follow along with. And the test ended up working out okay. That's the link that we put together in, I don't know, about 30 minutes or so. So that's going to be pretty cool to go over. In the beginning here, I want to go over things that you would need if you want to get started bead spriting yourself, and also just kind of run through some examples of both sprites that I've made personally, some of my friends have made, and then some of the top posts on the Reddit subreddit for bead spriting, which are very amazing and should be a really great place to get some inspiration for ideas for sprites that you might want to make. So let me go ahead and get started with that. First things first, I'm going to keep this up during the stream while we're making sprites. The bare minimum of things you need, you're going to need a clothes iron. If you don't already have one, you'll have to get one. You're going to need some kind of heavy flat object like a large book. This is for keeping the sprite flat once we finish ironing it. It'll become way later, but you will need to have some kind of large book or flat object that's heavy. You're going to need a pegboard, which you can buy at just about any craft store. Hobby Lobby will work. This is a pegboard right here. Hobby Lobby, Michaels, you can get them online. They should sell them on Amazon. Cool stuff for kids. I'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to the resources. This is the board that we're going to be putting the beads on, and in the bottom right camera you can see that this is a clear pegboard right here. Pegboards have 29 by 29 pegs, or pixels. And what's cool about them, here's 2 pegboards. They fit together. You can interlock them to make larger and larger sprites. So you need to have a pegboard. You need to get ironing paper, which you can usually buy. It's in the same aisle with all the Perler bead sprite stuff. You could also buy parchment paper, which is this. This is just regular cooking paper. You'd use this if you were making cookies, that sort of thing. You can buy it in the grocery aisle at your local store. You wouldn't be able to get that at a craft store, but you can just get the regular ironing paper squares. I highly recommend picking up the Perler Bead Starter Kit. I'm going to show you what it looks like out of the bag right here. Here's the Perler Bead Starter Kit. It has 16 colors to choose from, which is a fine selection. This is about enough to make just about any NES sprite. NES color palettes are pretty simple. Maybe the most complex NES sprite has 4 or 5 colors to it. So this is more than enough to get started and see, is this really something you want to get into? And then last but not least, you need to have some kind of image software that lets you put a grid over your sprite that you're working on. MS Paint has this capability. I'll show you how to do that in Paint. The software that I'm using is Paint.net. I've chosen Paint.net because it's very lightweight. It's more feature-rich than MS Paint, but it's not super feature-rich like GIMP or Photoshop. It's not very, it doesn't take a long time to load, and it's not very intimidating. So that's the bare minimum. You have to have that in order to do this. Nice to have are tweezers. Check this out. These are Perler bead tweezers. What makes them special, see if I can get them in front of the main camera here. On the bottom of the tweezers there's these little prongs that are just sized right for them to pick up beads. So you can use regular tweezers, but these are made by Perler. They cost maybe $4. It comes with a little scoop on the other end too, so you can scoop up some beads. I sure can, Sanguine, thank you. Let me turn it down in the thing too. If that comes up again, let me know. Anyway, tweezers are very nice. They're a nice to have, not a requirement. Cool, thank you. The reason they're nice, and this will come up while we're actually making our first sprite, they make it a lot easier to pick up individual beads when you make a mistake. Usually it's more convenient to place the beads with your fingers, but these are nice when you need to make a mistake or you need to do something that's very precise. They're the Perler Beads official tweezers. You want to get some extra colors. My extra colors are sitting over there. I'll show them off when we get to our last sprite. We're probably going to do a Super Nintendo sprite at the end, so I have a lot of Perler bead colors. And you're going to need a lot of black, a lot of white, and a lot of flesh tones, because those show up in just about every sprite, especially starting with the Super Nintendo era. You might want to pick up some clear beads. I'll show you some examples of sprites that use clear beads. Sometimes you'll have a sprite that has very, very thin connections, like there might even be, like a sword that's only 1 pixel wide. If it's very thin, it's hard for the whole thing to stay together when you iron it. So you can use clear beads to sort of give it a little bit more stability, but not ruin the image. You usually can't see the clear beads unless if you're standing super close to them anyway. Let's see, extra pegboards. I have a ton of pegboards. I'm not going to be using, I'm probably going to just be using a maximum of 2 pegboards today, but you can get these on one of the website resources I have at the bottom. Super cheap. They go on sale maybe 5 or 6 times a year. You can get them in bulk. The reason you want to have extra pegboards is when we iron these, they're going to warp. You can't stop it from happening. You're applying a lot of heat, and these are made out of plastic, so if you use them maybe 10 or so times, they're going to start to warp and bend, and it'll make it harder to use them going forward. So you do want to get a lot. This stack of pegboards I was looking for all morning and couldn't find it, and my wife, who just pointed this out in chat, said, hey, they're probably in the craft box. She had this great idea of getting a craft box that I completely forgot about, and they're, sure enough, huge stack of pegboards in the craft box. Let's see. You might want to think about getting one of these. These are newfangled. These did not exist when I first started beading. This is a giant pegboard. Perler has realized that there's a huge market now for gaming enthusiasts in particular making very large bead sprites. So usually what you do if you wanted to make a large bead sprite is you just interlock your pegboards. They'll have a little lock mechanism where you can just pop them into each other. That can be stressful sometimes, though. You can bump things and get them to disconnect. You could just pick up this giant board that we're not going to use today, but if you do want to do a big project in the future, I recommend one. Hey, Technical Will, how's it going? The Perler bead pen, this guy right here, I actually tried this out before stream. This came out after my last bead sprite 2 years ago, so this is a fairly new product. I haven't had a chance to play around with it a lot. Basically, it's kind of cool. You like rotate this guy here, and you fill it up with beads, and you close it and shake it, and it lets you press a button to apply beads onto your pegboard. It's kind of neat. It was a little bit bulky, and I didn't really get the hang of using it when I first started out with my test sprite this morning, so I'm not going to be using it today, but maybe if you're using this for the first time, you'll get the feel for it. It'll be nice. It'd probably be quicker than doing it by hand. So those are your bare minimum and nice to have things. Beyond that, if you're thinking about making decorations, the main thing you need is just masking tape. Duct tape is fine too. Masking tape is easier to remove. Usually doesn't pull the paint off the walls. Every sprite that I have in my apartment is held to the wall firmly by masking tape, and I can easily just pull these right off without having to do anything. You just kind of put some masking tape around the back of it so that it sticks and is flush with the wall. Maybe after a year or so the tape will start to weaken. You might have to replace it, but it holds up for a really long time. It doesn't cause permanent damage to your apartment. You don't have to use thumbtacks or anything like that, although thumbtacks are an option if you prefer that aesthetic. You can pick up a magnet kit. You can get these at Michael's. This is if you wanted to make bead sprites that you would put on your fridge. You can get a corkboard kit also from a hobby store. You can basically glue either the magnets or the corkboard to the back of your bead sprite so that you could use it as a coaster or so that you could put it on your fridge. And if you get either of those, of course, you need a glue gun in order to affix them. And then finally at the end, just some resources. You can go to any hobby or craft store to pick up the bare minimum objects. You want to go to spritersresource.com that you can see in my background here. This is what I'll be using to get the sprites we're going to make today. This has just about every game sprite ever made that matters, so you can jump here if you really want something. Cool stuff for kids is if you're really getting hardcore into bead spriting, I'd say if you're just starting out for the first time, go to your hobby or craft store and buy your starter kit with just the 16 colors. But if you're like, man, I really dig bead spriting, I want to do this all the time, I want to get a shitload of colors and have a big collection of beads, stay away from the craft store. It's going to be too expensive. Cool Stuff for Kids has amazing sales. I'll pull up that tab now and kind of show you what they got. Right now they have 1,000 bead bags are 30% off across the board. So they put stuff on sale maybe once a month. It's like Steam. You can get beads really cheap. You can get pegboards really cheap. This should be your #1 source for buying beads in bulk in all the different colors that you might want. Other than that, there's some rare beads you can only find on eBay. That's when you get really, really extreme. You're like, oh man, I got to have this specific dark red to make the thing that I want to make. So you can always check eBay for Perler beads. And then last of all, I want to run through here in a second. Reddit.com, our Beadsprites, is the subreddit that has lots of really great stuff. It has some cool resources here on the right with an FAQ, what color should you buy, where you should buy beads. Some advanced methods that I'm not going to go through on stream today that you can use in order to bead more effectively. It also has, usually if you sort by top of all time, you can find some really awesome Beadsprite projects that might give you some inspiration. So before we get started spriting, there's all of the basics that you need, your bare minimums, nice to have, decoration, and resources. Next, we're going to take a look at some of the sprites that I've actually already done and are around my apartment. So these are a combination of sprites that I have now and also sprites I've done in commission for friends. We used to have events where, you know, I had all these colors. I wasn't using all the colors, but I had a lot of friends who'd come over and see the bead sprites and be like, man, that's really cool. So we would do a beading party where have a bunch of people over, set something up on the TV where you have the patterns that they're working from, and then they would pick a character that they'd want to make and you'd all bead together. It's relaxing, it's fun, I recommend it. So you can just see like we've got this cool Zelda Hyrule sigil sprite here. My buddy Haypax has a Mega Man with a 0 on his wall. We made a Samus for one of my wife's coworkers. I made a Pikachu that's next to our electrical outlet. You know, we've got Chill Penguin and Heat Man on both sides of a thermostat. My wife has this cool like aquatic themed mirror, so we've got you know, Engard and Donkey Kong riding on top of it. Somebody made this sequence of sprites of Sonic like falling off of a ledge and then jumping up and picking up some rings. That was pretty cool. You might recognize from we did NES Day, this is Barbie versus the Bad Outfit. You know, made some Castlevania. We got our Bionic Commando. You can really get creative with where you place your sprites. You know, look around your apartment, say, hey, what would be a cool place to put a bead sprite? This is a pretty cool one here where we've got a piranha plant that's rising up out of one of our lamps and shooting a fireball, and you can kind of just barely make out Luigi climbing up the side of it like he climbs the vines in the Mario games. I've used it for labeling cabinets, so when people say, hey, where are your glasses? I just say, hey, it's the one with the Zelda bottle on it. They can quickly find out what cabinet to go to. You know, we've made Kefka here from Final Fantasy VI. I've got a banana peel on our trash can. For one of our friends' birthday parties, I made the dude you might recognize from the movie The Big Lebowski. Here's my collection of extra colors. It's actually expanded a little bit since then, but sharing that. Here's, you know, I saw this cool thing in our kitchen that looked like it would be perfect to have a bunch of people racing on it, so I made a bunch of Mario Kart sprites and put them together like that. If you look really close here on the top of Lakitu's head, you can make out these clear beads. This is really thin, right? There's only like one bead here, and this isn't even going to stick to this one if you melted it together. So I used some clear beads in his helmet, in his hair here, to make sure that everything's stuck together. And the dude abides indeed, technically will. So that's pretty cool. The bathroom, I've got a Frog Mario. I showed off the Barbie with the bad outfit at my wife's request. Here's our shoes section. I've got Mario in the Karibo shoe. Again, cabinets. At some point, you know, you just be like, hey, it's in the Spyro cabinet. Hey, it's in the Link cabinet. I think that's a really cool use of bead sprites to kind of show people around in your apartment where you should find things. Let's see, what else do we got? I think that's the last one. So I'm going to go ahead and close these out, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'll show you guys some more of the top scoring bead sprites from the Reddit thread after we've made our first one. Okay, so what I wanted to do today here on spritersresource.com, this is where you're going to go to find your sprite. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. We're going to start with a simple NES game sprite. And the very simple, very small sprites are from like Zelda or Super Mario or Mega Man. Those are about as simple as you can get. So we're going to go ahead and start with Zelda. I already made a link here, as you guys can see. So I can make a different sprite. I can make any of these NPCs or any of these overworld or underworld enemies. I just want to stay away from the bosses as they'll be a little bit bigger. I'd like to be able to make this one quick and kind of get to the point. So is anyone in chat, are there any particular Zelda characters? Like, would you like to do the old man, Zelda, the shopkeep, the old lady? We could do any of these overworld enemies. There's quite a few. There's the Octorok, the Moblins. if you have a particular feeling or there's one you really want to see, just suggest the sprite in chat, and I'll go ahead and do that one. We'll see. And if anyone, you know, feels particularly strongly, maybe we can have you bid or vote on it. I'll give it a couple minutes. If nobody picks one, I'll probably just do an Octorok. Whatever we make today is going to go on the wall behind me for future gaming streams as well. Just looking at some of the options here. There's Dark Nuts, Skeletons, Whiz Robes, Pulse Voice. Alright, we can do Zelda. Alright, so I'm gonna have to do this slow. Okay, so we got Zelda, Octorok, and Pulse Voice. Does anyone feel really strongly and want to spend some sphere points on that? I think I might just do Zelda, though. That's probably the easiest one to start with. Let me at least get started with putting this into paint.net. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click this image and click Copy Image. I could also just save it if I wanted to, but copying is faster. I'm going to pull up my paint.net program. I'm going to go to Edit and hit Paste in the new image. Let me bring up the side here. There we go. Cool. All right, Zelda it is. Let's do it. Now, I like to do action sprites, and this one implies that later I'm going to want to do a Triforce, so I think I'm going to go with this one as opposed to this one. So we'll use this Zelda sprite right here. And then we can put Link and Zelda together since we made Link earlier this morning. So let me, I should probably slow down and explain exactly what I'm doing, right? Let me turn off the pixel grid. So the first thing I'm doing here is as soon as I paste in the sprite, you know, this is a grid of sprites. I obviously don't want to use all of these. I don't want to just use the old man, or don't just want to use the shopkeep. I specifically want to use this Zelda sprite. So I'm going to zoom in as far as I can. I'm just using Control and the scroll wheel. And I'm going to select her and get just her and nothing else. Then I'm going to hit Copy. I'm going to paste her into a new image here. I'm going to zoom all the way in as far as I can. That's as far as I can go. Now here's the reason why we're using paint.net. You can use this in MS Paint as well. If you go to View, go to Pixel Grid, it gives you a handy grid that tells you these are exactly the colors you should be using. That's pretty great. There's also a grid lines option in MS Paint. There's one in GIMP and in Photoshop as well. Like I said, this is just a very lightweight program for doing that. So great. This is going to be our working sprite. Now what I've got over here, let me show you. Here's my colors on my left here. I'm just going to be picking them up and placing them as we go. I'll try to pick up the camera after we've done something that's notable, you know, while we're working on this here. So the first thing you're going to do, there's two approaches to bead spriting. One is to go row by row, so like start at the bottom row, and then do the next row here, and then the next row here, and so on. Another approach is to go color by color. That way you're not switching between colors all the time. Both of them have their merits and both of them have their drawbacks. The benefit of doing row by row is that if you make a mistake, it's really easy to tell that you've made one and correct it quickly. You know, if you go by color and you make a mistake, you might have to undo a lot of stuff and fix it. Whereas if you just miss a single row, it's just only going to be maybe a maximum of 16 beads in this case. Also, when you're doing it row by row, you have a lot of room to fit the beads in. So like if I've just done this row and now I'm working on row number 2, I have all this space above it to fit my fingers in with the beads. But if you do colors, sometimes you'll have an area that's surrounded by other colors. Like if I did black last, this black square is all by itself here in the corner. It would be kind of hard for me to fit my fingers. I'd have to use the tweezers in order to fit something. So I think for this one, we'll go ahead and start by doing it by color rather than by row. The next one we do, I've got in mind, we'll do that one by row instead. So first, I'm going to pick my colors. Now, I don't have a color that exactly matches this light blue, but that's okay. I'm just going to pick one that is light blue. You'll notice the Chrono Trigger bead sprites behind me are nowhere near the exact colors that were in Chrono Trigger, but they're very you can tell that that's Frog, you can tell that that's Magus, you can tell that that's Marley, even though the colors are a little bit different. So just make sure that you get the gradient right. You know, it's not so much make sure that you have cherry red and apple red. It's that make sure you have your dark red, your light red, your very light red, and so on. So let's get started here. The first thing I'm going to do, if you look on the pegboard here, is I'm going to count. There is a blank space at the very beginning, so I'm going to skip the first peg here in the bottom left corner. I'm going to put my first color right there. That's the first blue. Now I'm going to count how many beads I need to put that are in blue along the bottom. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 blue sprites. Let's just do that here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and I just dropped one, don't worry, 12. All right. So cool, there's the bottom of her dress. Now before I do the next part, you might wonder, hey, why did you do it on the very, very bottom of the pegboard? Why didn't you like start in the middle or do it like one space up? Well, there's always the worry that you might run out of pegboard space, and you can plan this out in advance. You know that your pegboard is 29 pegs by 29 pegs. 1 peg equals 1 pixel. You can see here in paint.net at the bottom it says that this sprite is 14 by 16, so we're going to be fine. But still, it's a good idea to use all of the pegboard when you can so that you're not upset and sad later when you're off by 1 pixel. 2, this gives me more room to use the iron at the end. I'm going to be ironing off the edge. If I started the bead sprite 1 pixel up from the edge, then the iron would be brushing along the edge of the pegboard and would make it melt and warp faster. So I think it's good to always start in the bottom left corner whenever you're starting a bead sprite. All right, so continuing, we said that we're going to do colors first, so I'm not going to do any of the orange in her hair or the cheddar in her skin or the black. We're just going to do the blue. So we're just going to count again. We're in the second row. These are the ones that we're adding. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Another way to do it is to just place them the way you see them. There's one up and to the right of the bottom right blue and one up and to the right of the bottom left one. Then just place from there. Of course, as we go, don't hesitate to ask questions about this. Notice these beads want to fall into a peg. You don't really have to be super precise, even if you've got big hands like I do. You know, you don't necessarily need to have a pair of tweezers to place these, because as long as they're not on their side, they're going to tend to want to fall into place. Now the next row I don't need to count because look, it's exactly the same as this one. I'm just going to do another row that's exactly the same. What I'm doing is I'm grabbing a handful of beads that I'm going to be using with my left hand and just passing them over to my right hand as I go. But you could do this with tweezers. You could try using that gun. Cool. Now the next one is, again, we're doing a lot of repeating, but now we don't have one on the left or on the right, so we're going to start here and here. You don't really need to do a lot of counting with her dress because her dress is, you know, once you've counted the bottom, the rest of it just kind of follows logically. Cool, and then the next one is exactly the same. I'll highlight it here. We're just going to repeat. Oops. Now if you do have like a craft table or something, there's a couple ways you could do this. You could print out the image with the grid on it and work from your printout. What I do is my TV has an HDMI input, so I just plug my laptop or my computer into the TV and put the gridded thing on the TV so I can see it even if I'm far away. Cool. We'll definitely go over ironing quite a bit. That's the scary part. That's the dangerous part where you can screw it up. All right, so here. But you know, if you have any questions, feel free to ask now. I mean, this is going to be a lot of busy work on my part, filling these in, so it'll give me something to talk about while we get to the next parts. Here you can see these 2 pixels. There's just 1 each on both sides of her belt, so we're just going to put those there. Then we're going to jump up to these next 4. There's 4. And then it starts on either side in the next row here. Let me highlight it. Put 1 on either side. AFLG, how's it going? There we go. And then 2 on either side here. 1, 2. Oops. See, I dropped that one and it just fell into the peg slide. You'll get kind of used to the best way to apply them after you've done this for a while. Yeah, let me show you that. So here's the tweezer. These are the official Perler bead tweezers. I'll try to show them on this one as well. Right? You can use any tweezers, but these are very convenient because they have little prongs that are specifically made for picking up beads. So if I made a mistake with a bead in the very center here, the tweezers make it a lot easier to pick out. Then if I were trying to use my fingers, it would be a real pain in the butt to try to pick that guy up. All right, so we're done with blue. We don't have to do any more blue. I'll go ahead and show off what it looks like from the top. You can kind of compare it left to right. That looks correct. So next, why don't we go ahead and do the flesh color. Now on the NES, they don't really use a peach color for flesh. They use this color called cheddar. Looks kind of like this. Let's see if I can show it on the camera here. Yeah, that's the color. It's more of an orangish or a light orange. It comes with the starter kit, so you should be good to go to do NES. Just about anything NES related is that cheddar color. Like Mega Man here, his skin is actually kind of an orangish cheddar color. You get a good view back. Alright, so now we're going to start doing the skin part. There's 2 on her belt, right? It happens to be the same tone. Yeah, don't worry, I booted him. It's not cool to jump in other channels and advertise what you're doing, man. I know FLG's a kid though, so cut him some slack usually. Peach would work too. Yeah, I mean, use any color you want. Cheddar is like the closest actual RGB match to the NES sprite, so it will look very closely in the NES sprite, but if you use Peach, it would look fine. So it would just look extra fleshy if you had that one instead. All right, let me see if I can highlight. So I'm going to use the magic wand tool. It's pretty convenient to highlight just the flesh that I'm working on here. So we got up, left, 1. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4 we want to count. Then 2 on the left. Now let's go 1, 2. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Alright, so that looks like that's done there on the left. Let me just count and make sure it's right though. So we had, starting from the bottom of the top part of her dress, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then a block of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's right. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, and then 1, 2 on the left. So that looks perfect. Let's do the other side now, which I think is just symmetrical, but. Hey, Amphibi. How's it going? Welcome. 2. And then let's do 4. When you're doing it like pixel by pixel, you start to realize how like spindly some NES sprites are, right? Cool, so it looks like her arms are good to go. Let's go ahead and do her face. So we got 2 right at the top of her dress here. Most Super Nintendo and Beyond sprites do not use cheddar as a flesh tone. They tend to use peach or light pink or that kind of a thing, and they also tend to have multiple shades of flesh tone. So yeah, cheddar is great if you're doing an NES sprite. As soon as you get into Super Nintendo, you want to find some better options. Cool, and then let's go, looks like there's 4 here for her forehead. Once we're done with flesh, I'll go ahead and show off the whole thing so far. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Now we gotta skip. Looks like we skip 2 here and then put 2 above. And we're gonna skip left and right. So 1, 2, 1 for your ear. So all those pointy ears. Oh, I screwed that one up, so let me use the tweezers to fix it. Be careful if you drop one and it's in a big area, you probably want to use the tweezers. You might be okay with your fingers, but if you have big fingers like I do, it's pretty easy to slip and then bump a bunch of other beads out of the way. So use the tweezers usually if you have to make a change. Alright, cool. So now we've got the flesh tones all done. Let's take a look. It's looking pretty good. Looks like that matches. Let me knock out black real fast because there's not a lot of them. When you're buying your extra colors, you're going to need lots of black and white. Lots and lots and lots of black and white. Cool. And then she's got 2 blacks on either side of her dress, so we'll put those here. Alright, let's check it out. Looking pretty good. Now she just has to, we have to fill in her hair, which is, I think that's the most color by far. So we're going to do orange for the end here. Let me highlight those. Alright, orange. So doing it this way has the advantage of now we don't really have to count anymore. When you do it but row by row, you have to count every single time. But when you're doing it where you're just going by color, whenever you do your final color, you're pretty much just filling in the gaps. You don't have to do so much counting. Like I know, for example, that her hair goes all the way down from her arm down to the bottom of her dress. Now the orange that comes with the starter kit is actually kind of translucent, so it looks a little bit different. It'll still look fine once we iron it. And then this is all just filled in from there. We're about to discover the downside to doing it this way though, is that now I have significantly less room to fit these beads in than if I had done it row by row. Right, because they're just surrounded by other beads, so I have to be very precise with how I squeeze the bead into place. If I were doing it row by row, I wouldn't have that problem. I'd have the whole area above the row I'm working on to fit things in. So we'll try to squeeze this in. If we fail, it's okay. Alright, we got it. If we had failed, we'd just use the tweezers to fix it. Same there. And here. And let's do... She's pretty symmetrical. A lot of NES sprites are. Is it a bald spot? I was thinking it's like it's her forehead, or maybe it's like... Maybe she has a crown. Maybe it's a crown. That would make sense, like a tiara. It's hard with the NES because they had such limited room to add detail, especially in the early games before they had gotten really adept at it. Bangs could work. That would make sense. You'll see that they have to communicate a lot. I think bead spriting will make you appreciate sprite art a lot more. Like, what they're able to convey. When you look at that completed sprite, that's pretty clearly a woman raising her arms. But, like, at what point during the creation of the sprite does it look like that? It doesn't really look correct until you're basically done. So it's pretty impressive what kind of detail they're able to convey with limited pixels and a limited palette in the case of the NES. Like, they use the same color for her flesh as they do for her belt here in the middle, but you still know that that's a belt, that she's not, like, you know, wearing like bearing her midriff or something like that. And like her open mouth is the same color. Whoops, you used the wrong color. Goes back. Her open mouth is the same color as her hair, and again, that works. It doesn't look like her mouth is hair. She has a ball of hair in her mouth. You can tell that that's supposed to be a mouth. We've got to be a little bit careful filling in here. We do have to do a little bit of counting, so we're not putting beads where there shouldn't be any. So I'm gonna try to do an outline first, and that way it'll be easier to fill in at the end. So I'm gonna put the beads where they need to go on the edges. Cool, and then I know that I can just fill in from there. When you're filling in, it's nice because if you drop a bead, it'll probably just land somewhere where you want it to go anyway, like what just happened. Yeah, the minimalist style is great, worthy of praise, worthy of appreciation. This is especially true in video game music. Like, when you, as an artist, when you limit your palette, you're forced to be creative and work within the bounds of what you have. These days, it's very easy for a musician to use something like Pro Tools or Cubase and have unlimited options, which can be paralyzing, you know? But when you only have 4 channels, there's only 4 things you can work with. You have to be creative. You have to make something that you can bear to listen to on repeat for hours and hours and hours. That's why a lot of video game music is so melodic, because you know you can bear to listen to a catchy melody on repeat for a long time. Alright, so we're just about done. We got maybe 5 more beads to pop in. While I go ready the iron and all that fun stuff, technically, Will, you said you had some ironing questions? Soul Crew, welcome. Yeah, I could hear that. Yep. It's a really good introduction to composing as well if you're trying to get into that. So let's show off our completed product. Looks like Zelda, right? Like the orange is a little bit different than her hair. Oh, you have no idea how to begin. Okay, well I'll do it from scratch. Let me unselect. Yeah, it looks right. And it's going to look a little better once it's ironed. You'll notice one of these things I've got here. This is like a paint swatch that I made, a palette. Basically, these are all of my beads, all the different colors that I have, and I just sort of melted them together so I can get a quick reference of what colors will look like when they're melted versus when they're dry. Before you melt them, they look like this on the back. They tend to look a little bit different after you melt them. So if you get really serious into bead spriting, I recommend you make one of these. Just take all your beads to 4x4 squares. You can quickly reference what your colors are going to look like when they're done. All right, so ironing. I'm going to have to make some more space, so bear with me as I move this thing. You're going to have to see it from the corner here. Right now I've got a Harry Potter book that I'm balancing my camera on so you can see your front view, but I need to get that out of the way so I have room to iron. Here's our clothes iron. It can be any kind. There's different schools of thought as to what temperature you should use. They have low, medium, and high. I just use high. I'll explain the two different ways you could iron it. Some people try to iron on low heat to keep the sort of bead quality where there's a donut or a hole on the inside. Yeah, so if you look again on the Beadsprite, there's a little hole in each of the beads. And if you do it on high heat and you melt it for a longer amount of time, the plastic on the top of the beads will melt down and merge into the hole, so there won't be a hole anymore. I kind of like the look of them better when you do that. That's called overmelting. So I will intentionally do that. Not only because I think it looks better, but also it's harder to screw up. Like, you can't really mess it up. Now, the thing that's super critical are these ironing sheets. I mentioned these earlier in the bare minimum things you'll need. When you go to your craft store, they sell these in packs. They're a little bit expensive for what you're getting. I mean, it's just a piece of paper that won't cause the plastic to melt onto your iron and won't cause the plastic to be unrecoverable. This actually isn't one of the sheets from the store. What this is parchment paper, which is a kind of cooking paper you can get used to bake cookies on. You can buy this at any grocery store. They give you a whole roll of it. I have one nearby-ish. Not near enough to not knock over my iron, though, so maybe I'll pick it up and show it to you later. Just kind of like cut it into a square so it's slightly larger than your pegboard. Now, you want the parchment paper to be flat. You don't want it to be curling up on the sides. Fortunately, you have a tool that does that effectively. We'll be using that. Yeah, I have a ton of colors, so here's my actual color count that I have right now. But for the purpose of this introduction, I don't want to tell people, hey, if you want to get into bead spriting, you have to go spend, a few $100s buying all the different colors. All I have right now is the introductory set next to me, because that's something you can spend $15 on and see whether you like bead spriting or not. So you have parchment paper. We're going to lay it on top of the sprite. You should be able to see it. The paper's translucent. I'm going to let the iron heat up a little bit more here, and then we'll get started. So for ironing, before I do it, there's a couple things to keep in mind. First, the iron is very hot and very dangerous. If you're under 18, I recommend you do this with parental supervision. You can hurt yourself, and I have hurt myself on the iron before, so be careful. 2, every iron has hot spots. There are parts on the iron that are particularly hot. On mine, it's the top of the iron. So just kind of, you'll get used to that after you iron a little bit. For a sprite like this, the entire sprite's going to be covered by the iron, so it's going to be kind of hard for us to screw it up. And you'll see, I'll try to bring the camera in for a closer look. Let me show you as it is right now. Do you see how it's very, very faint, the bead sprite? We can barely make it out through the parchment paper. But once we've successfully done some ironing, you'll see the colors will get a little bit darker. They'll be sticking to the parchment paper. You'll know that it's been ironed correctly. If you're 17, if you trust yourself to use an iron, go for it. But, just bear in mind, if you're a kid and you want to do this, it's a cool arts and crafts thing, but bring your parents into it if you need it. Okay, so I think my iron's ready. What I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be placing it on the entire sprite, and I'm going to be moving it in a slow circle. The idea for the circle is you don't want to put too much heat on one part of the sprite at one time. You just want to be constantly moving it so that you're evenly spreading the heat. And you're not like over melting the beads to the point where they start to burn. That probably won't happen. You're only really going to be ironing for maybe 30 seconds or so. Like I said, I'll show you what it looks like once it's actually done. So let's start here. Let me pull it back just a little bit so I have a little bit more space. Okay, here we go. It's right on top of the parchment paper. Parchment paper is pretty good because it gives you it conducts the heat pretty well, and it lets you smoothly move the iron back and forth like this. It's a very low friction surface for the iron. Now I'm going to pop the iron off here for a sec. Usually I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't stop mid-melting, but just to show you how you can tell what is and is not melted so far. So you see how now parts of the sprite are, hold on a sec, gotta get used to that there. Parts of the sprite are significantly darker now, and they're starting to stick more to the paper. That's how you know those beads have been melted, because they're darker and sticking to the paper. She's still kind of faded down at the very bottom of her dress, so we want to focus more on melting the bottom of her dress. So we'll go back. You can apply some pressure. Remember, try to find the hot spot of your iron. If you're doing a simple NES sprite, you won't need to do that at the very beginning. This is good enough. Exactly, Doom Pastry. If you're not seeing it melt, you probably just need to push some more pressure. You're not just like lightly placing this, you are putting some pressure down. I'm pushing down on the iron quite a bit here. You know, rotate it if you need to. It looks like I've got one side is significantly better melted than the other, so I'm just going to spin the whole thing around here. Always moving in a circle. Starting to look pretty good though. Almost done. Hey D-Rock, just in time for the first one, yep. I think we're just about done, but I'm just going to make one last pass with the iron to make sure everything's even. Okay, cool. So let me show it off. Let me unplug my iron, so I'm not hurting myself. We'll do Doom Pastry. This is going on YouTube. You can check it out. So let's see, without melting my cable. See, now it's clearly stuck to the parchment paper, and you see how you can't really see the holes inside of the beads anymore. They've melted and filled up the donut holes. So this is how we know that it's done. We can see that it's basically each of the beads, instead of being a circle, now looks more like a square. So let me keep it here for a sec. Lift the parchment paper carefully, gently. There's Zelda! Hooray! Okay, so she's still pretty hot, right? That's a bunch of melted plastic down there, so let it cool a little bit. But notice, I don't know if you can tell on the video, but her corners are already starting to like warp upward because it's melted plastic, and that's what happens when you melt plastic. So that's why we need to have the big, heavy book. I'm going to go off on the corner. I have a flat surface with a big, heavy Harry Potter book set up. I'm going to be flattening it under the Harry Potter book so that it stays flat. Like we did that with this Link sprite. He was flattened under a book for about 20 minutes, and now he's fine. He's not warping up or anything like that. You sure can reuse the parchment paper. I highly recommend you do. In fact, that one that I just used, the parchment paper, was the same one that I used for the Link that I just showed you. So let me peel them off here. Take a look. Hey, it's Zelda. Maybe later we'll make a Triforce sprite for her to hold up. So I'll be right back. My book is off camera. But you can imagine a book, a heavy surface, flattening a sprite. Actually, yes, it is Deathly Hallows Doom Pastry. Cool. There you go, Beadsprite number 1. So that one, along with the Link, will go on the wall behind us. Let me get the iron somewhere where it's not in my way. And let's set up for the next one. So my thought for the next sprite is let's demo a sprite that is easier to do or better to do with a with the line by line method. Like last time we didn't do the line by line method, we did the color by color method. This time I'd like to demo the other way of doing it, which is line by line. So I noticed that a good set of sprites for doing that are the Final Fantasy I sprites, or the NES. I was just going to do the Black Mage because that's my favorite character. It looks like Vivi from Final Fantasy IX. If anyone in chat has a strong vote for a different Final Fantasy I character they'd like to see, let me know. I'll show you them here though. Yeah, so I was just going to grab this Black Mage. But if you'd like to see the Red Mage, the Black Belt, the Fighter, the Thief, or the White Mage, let me know and we can do that. I'd recommend using the small pegboards. This is a tiny one. When you check the recorded video later, D-Rock, I'll show you. Here's 2 pegboards that I have, right? They interlock. I would definitely recommend that when you first get started, your very first bead sprite should be one that fits on a single pegboard. You should not do a big one that requires multiple pegboards. You definitely shouldn't do one that requires the giant pegboard. These are going to eventually be your goal. You're going to want to do these, but don't start with these or you're going to kill yourself. There's plenty of good NES sprites that fit on a single pegboard, single small one. Place this camera a little bit better here. Yeah, they should interlock, that's correct. Alright, so before we get started on this next one, let me show you some other cool inspirations you might see. I started the stream by showing off some of the bead sprites that are in my apartment, but on the Reddit, the subreddit for bead sprites, there's a lot of really cool ones. Some of them are really insane, like you're not going to be attempting this for several weeks or months of experience with bead sprites, but some of them are just really neat and might give you some cool ideas for ways to use bead sprites in decoration for your house or your apartment. So I've already expanded some of the cool ones. Here's a really giant link. That thing is huge compared to the ones we've already done. Here's a Chrono Trigger map with 47,000 beads. Here's a cool idea. Someone put magnets on the back of all their sprites and decorated their whole fridge. So they've got like a score in the top right corner. They work around the design of the fridge. Here's an Amaterasu from Okami that's as big or bigger than their actual husky dog. Bastion. This one is important. I wanted to show a picture of this. Alright, later Robin. I wanted to show you guys this. Do not buy, under any circumstances, the bucket that has the mixed beads in it. Do not. You will be so unhappy. Like, go online and buy a bag of 1,000 of the same color and sort them and keep them sorted. If you buy the single bucket, trying to separate them is going to drive you insane. And if you spill it, this will happen too. So stay away from these buckets. I highly recommend you avoid them. Here's somebody who made a Sorry board, and they made like 3D sprites. So basically they just made a flat sprite and then they fit it into a stand so they could use them as tools. There's a cool Adventure Time background somebody made. Here's a gigantic Wind Waker. This one is probably the most insane one I've seen. 144,000 beads to do the Kefka final battle in Final Fantasy VI. Ironing that was probably a little bit of a bitch. Deadpool, Ninja Turtles, a guy who made a gun and a cigarette. It's kind of neat. Here's another person who decorated their room so it's based around the design of the room. They've got their spikes at the bottom. Here are some Ninja Turtles. This is really cool. So this is people with a gaming-themed wedding. Yeah, I hear you, Dead Pixie. I couldn't imagine putting that together, first of all, and then ironing it. I should mention, as I see my cat over to the right, if you have a cat or a dog, you probably want to exile them while you're beating. I couldn't get a hold of Ben to put him in the bedroom, but I'm going to try to be vigilant and spray him away. They can bump into something and ruin your creation, so keep them out of it. Anyway, this is someone whose wedding, as their wedding favors, they made all these bead sprites and then just basically affixed them to a cool little gardening cup, and they gave these out on the tables. Here's someone who's using Evian bottles to store all their colors, which is, I think that's a pretty cool idea because you can pour them into your hand when you know which color you want to use. That's neat. Somebody who made their wall all the Final Fantasy sprites, every single one for FF1. Pixel Hobby. Fire Shard, I'm not familiar with that. Can you give me some more info? Here's somebody who made a clock. with the different evolutions. It's pretty sweet. Adventure Time, Samus. Here's someone who did a 3D sprite. If you go on our Beadsprites, you can find some examples of how to do this. Like they can show you how to make a companion cube where you make a bunch of 2D surfaces, but you make them so that they interlock, and you can just have them lock on or use a glue gun to get them to fit. This is kind of a cool thing to hang from your ceiling. It's a Kraken, all the Mega Man bosses, somebody selling coasters at a craft show. Here's the last one I wanted to show, like somebody who made a bunch of lemmings for their outdoors. It looks really neat. So anyway, look around your apartment or house, find places where it would be cool to put a bead sprite, and do it. If you haven't been watching from the beginning, check the YouTube video after it. I show some of the ones that are in our apartment, kind of give you some inspiration. All right, so we agreed that the next one's going to be the Black Mage, so let's start with that. Again, I'm going to spritersresource.com. Let me do this back from scratch. I'm going to NES. Clicking on F for Final Fantasy. Going to Final Fantasy 1. Taking a hero character, and I'm just going to right click, copy, go back into paint.net. I'm going to close these two. So we're done with them now. Let me, I'll turn the grid back off. I'm going to zoom in on the Black Mage we want, or you can pick whatever pose you want, but I'm just going to start with the basic one here. I'm going to try to select him and to isolate only the Black Mage and nothing else. We've got a little bit of extra there at the top, but that's okay. Copy, and then paste in a new image. There's our Black Mage. In paint.net, you just go to View, Pixel Grid, and now we got a grid. Yeah, they're waterproof. I have one in my bathroom that's fine. They're just plastic, so if it would survive, if it's plastic, it would survive. Oh, Fire Shard. That sounds really cool. You said Pixel Hobby? I'm gonna make a note of that for afterward. I actually haven't followed that. For those giant projects, that's certainly something I'd like to look into. Yeah, thank you for linking it. I'll use that. Thank you. Okay, so the Black Mage is one that I'm definitely going to do row by row. The previous ones I've done, this last Zelda and then the Link here have been. Instead of being row by row, we did color by color, but row by row is going to be a little bit easier here, and it'll show off that style. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to count out how many blacks are along the bottom. And you can just do this by highlighting it. You can see it says 17 by 1, so I know that there's 17 black I have to start here at the bottom. Oh, awesome. Dead Pixie and Fire Shard, thank you very much. That's awesome. I will look into that for future large projects. I have a couple in mind. I want to do that, I don't know if you've seen it, the Nesteros. It's like the Westeros map from Game of Thrones, but in the style of the Super Mario world map. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we can already see this sprite's going to be a little bit bigger than our Zelda that we just did. Let me bring up some of my info back up for you guys here. Alright, so that's row number 1. Let me just double check. That is definitely 17 by 1, and we did do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Cool. So the next row, we start with a black on either side. Even when I do it by rows, I try to do the ends first so I can stay bounded. So I know that there's a black there. Highlight. I know that there's a black here. I'm going to count the last blacks here are 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Now it's going to be easy because everything else on this row is light blue. Yeah, Fire Shard, though, I'd pay the extra and take the extra time just to have the peace of mind that I'm not going to ruin it at the end. If I'm doing a huge project like that, it can be pretty scary when you're doing it with just regular Perler beads and regular pegboards. Thanks for sharing that, though. That's super rad. Exactly the kind of expertise I was looking for. And One of the disadvantages of doing it row by row is it's not going to come together and look like what you're making until you're basically done. Whereas when you do it color by color, you kind of get a basic outline. A lot of post-NES sprites, like Super Nintendo, tend to have an explicit outline that you can work from. Like in this one for Black Mage, we could just do all the black first and have the entire outside of him. 1, 2. Again, I'm doing what I did before. I'm counting, so I'm saying on this row there's 4 blue, so I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 empty spots. Placing another black, 1, 2 blue, 1 black, 1, 2, 1 black, 1, and then 2 black. And I've made it easy for myself. The rest are just blue on this row. I picked up this cool bead pen that Perler recently released. They didn't have it when I last Beadsprited about 2 years ago. It's a little bulky, so I wasn't able to get the hang of it, but maybe if I practiced it would be, you know, more efficient than doing it this way with just my fingers. I have it in the text file there, but a pegboard for reference is 29 by 29 pixels. The worst is when you're doing a sprite that is like exactly 1 pixel wider or taller than your pegboard. You just have to connect a second pegboard just to do 1 pixel. It's shitty. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, blue, and then 1. When I'm counting like that, I'm saying, okay, that black 1, 1, 2, 3, blue, black 1, 1, 2, 3, blue, black 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, black 2. 1, 2. I'm going to just fill in again. Don't have any new colors yet. Yeah, while you do this, like, listen to music, put on some Netflix. It's a nice, relaxing activity. And until you get to the ironing part, you can't really screw it up too bad, you know, short of an animal. So here I've got this bead here is stuck on its side. If I tried to use my fat fingers, I'm not going to be able to pick it up, so I'm going to use my cool Perler tweezers and place it. Cool. All right, next row. Let's do the edges first. This is here by comparison. This is here. Then we got 1, 2 black. 1, 2, 3, 4 black. Or black. And that's it for black. The rest is blue. As you'll notice on this pegboard, speed sprites, Beadsprite speedrunning. I like that idea. Yeah, like have people race. I can see like having a little speedrun thing on the left side where you have like colors. So like, oh man, he beat the periwinkle. He got his PB on periwinkle. Notice on this pegboard, you see how, see if I can show it off here. See how there's a peg on the right here and one on the top? Make sure you position those correctly when you start beating. Like make sure, namely most of the time, if you're starting from the bottom left, that they're pointing up and right. That way if you fail to count, so you fail to plan, you need to add more pegboards, you can, because there's only those connectors on the top and the right. You could connect from other sides, like putting it on the other side when you started. Alright, so we got another black here. Black here. 2, 1, 2, 3. Cold split on the black outline. Exactly. You guys got it. some people would be pretty crazy fast at this. Getting close to his gloves here. This song is from a game called VVV V6. If you haven't played it, you should fix that. I think it's like $5 on Steam. It's an amazing, brutally hard platformer. I think I may have screwed something up. Hold on, let me count. Alright, so this row was... let's count from the bottom. It's good to see what you do when you screw up. It's not all, you're not screwed, right? So we have 17 on the bottom. We should go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. That all looks right. Then there should be 3 black here. These started too soon. 2, 3. I think there's an extra black there. Hold on, let's see. Alright. 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. Oh, here's the screw up. This is one of the... yeah, thank you, Dead Pixie. It looks like I caught it at the same time. That's all that was wrong. So this is one of the advantages of doing it line by line. If I had done it by color, I wouldn't have figured out that until way later in the process. I would have had to have redo it and done a lot of stuff. But now I'm doing it line by line. I caught that. I just had to move one bead over. It was okay. You know right away when you're doing it line by line if you've made a mistake or not. Because you're always comparing and recounting. All right, so this is 1, 2 blue, 1, 2 yellow, 1 black, then black all the way to the other end. Cool. Let's do the cheddar. I think we're going to use for the hat. Cheddar is a very common color in NES sprites. They use it for everything. It's flesh tones. If it's not flesh tones, in this case it's gloves. And the rest of it's blue. Middle right. There's an extra black. Oh, I see it. This one should go here, right? I think what happened was I had only highlighted the wrong row. Good looking out, Dead Pixie. Perfect. Let me make sure, let me go back to highlighting the row that I'm working with, and then I just have to remember to re-highlight whenever I start a next one. So what Dead Pixie's doing there is saving me a lot of time. Like, mistakes like that are inevitable to happen, like you do the same row twice in a row. And it usually would just be you'll figure it out too late, or it'll be off by a pixel. Let's do a quick bird's eye review of what we've got so far here. That looks exactly like the sprite, just on the bottom. Oh yeah, I hear that, Pixie. Oh god. Yep. Yeah, make sure you check it closely, count your colors, all that fun stuff before you iron. Keep that from happening to you. Could happen to you. We got 3 black. I think it's always, even when you're doing line by line, it's good to do your colors in order. So don't do like, 3 black and then 3 blue and then 2 yellow. It's easier to tell if you've made a mistake if you do it this way that I'm doing now. Some point, because of the way I have my camera set up, I'm going to have to move the already completed section below what you guys can see. That'll be okay though. Are you making one now too, D-Rock? Awesome. Black Mage is a good choice. You kind of get a feel for how to use your fingers for it. Like, I pinch the bead, and I kind of squeeze it until it slides out of my fingers into place. Ah, no worries, said Pixie. Awesome. Oh man, Suikoden 2. That game is a treasure. That's on the list. So the usual purpose of this channel is I'm trying to play through every good game that's ever been made at least once, because I believe that there are so many good games that have been made. We passed the singularity point that even if I spent my entire life trying to play through all of them, I couldn't possibly get to all of them. So Suikoden 2 is on that list, as is Suikoden 1. Luca Blight is one of my favorite villains. He's up there with Kefka. Yeah, Black Mage is a good introduction. There's a minimal number of colors, it's large enough, it's got a nice black outline. The colors that come with the starter kit are almost exactly correct. Oh, Sanguine, you haven't played Suikoden 2? You should play Suikoden 1 first. If you like JRPGs, it's one of the best. Oh, I screwed something up already. I put 2 blues where there should be 2 cheddars. It's his other glove. Oh, come on, come on. There we go. The edges are particularly prone to being knocked off. Highlight the next row. Black. Black. 1, 2. Really, you're just doing these beads in relation to the ones you've already done. And the rest are blue. Let me use these ones that I put down by mistake. Got my cheddar before I forget. Does it go up to Suikoden 3? Are there more than that? I've only played 1 and 2. I like the idea of like the whole 108 characters. Suikoden, the series, is actually based on it. Suikoden is Japanese for water margin. It's one of the, I think, 4 classical novels in Chinese literature. The other one you probably know of is Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is the story that the Dynasty Warriors series is based on. Suikoden's based on water margin. Like 108 stars. I thought there was a Suikoden 3. I just haven't played it. Next row. Let's go. The biggest bead sprite? I don't know, man. That Okami sprite that was like bigger than the guy's dog was pretty huge. You can browse our bead sprites on Reddit to find some really, really big ones. Nice. Getting there, getting to exciting places. What I like about doing row by row is you like, instead of getting excited for the next color, you're getting excited for the next major feature. So like, oh man, we just did his gloves. Gloves hype. Now we're at Black Mage face hype. And so it's 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yep, D-Rock. Welcome. Welcome to bead spriting. You've committed your first bead disaster. This will not be your last. I like to tell people, so like, you know, I ride a motorcycle, and they like to tell you, hey, you're going to dump your bike. It's not a question of if it's going to happen, it's a question of when. So it's better to just get it over with when you're first learning. Similarly, you're going to screw up your beads. You're going to have an almost done bead sprite, and you're going to bump it and ruin the whole thing and have to start over. It's very much a lesson in patience and being able to recover. It's actually it's appropriate for video games, because if you play these hard games, you know, you have those times where you lose an hour worth of save, and you're like, okay, I'm done bead spriting for today. I'll put this away, and we'll come back at it some other time. That's a cool idea, Dead Pixie. Next row. Getting there. Hat hype. This is going to go almost to the top of the pegboard. It looks like it's 26 high. Oh wait, I screwed that up. The pegboard is 29 by 29. Actually, now it's mostly black, so it makes more sense to fill in the blue first. It's the beginning of the hat. Oh shit. Oh, Kami. It still sucks when you dump it, but it really is. And I'm just going to go ahead and place the next row's blues, because then we don't need to use blue anymore. Just get it out of the way. Blue. Blue. Cool. And the rest of this row is black. Yeah, man, so when I lived in Ohio, we had a motorcycle safety course that was subsidized by the taxpayer. Basically, you'd go to this course, you would ride their bikes. It was over 3 days, and at the end you took the test that gave you your license. So you got to go ride on their bikes, you got to go dump their bikes when you inevitably made a mistake. And at the end you got lots of training to do the license test, and then you'd get your license. If you live in a state that has an option like that, I think they're pretty common. I highly recommend it. That's pretty immediate. You can also just stay away from motorcycles. I like mine, but understand why people would not want to ride one. Very gas efficient. Get like 70, 80 miles to a gallon. I'm gonna go with brown for the hat. An eye hype. Eye looks like it's cheddar. We're gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Let me just knock out both the eyes while I'm here, because it'll be easier to work around since everything else is black. So that's 1, 2, 1. Cool. And the rest is black in this row. So even when I'm doing row by row, sometimes I break that rule if it would be convenient. Particularly when it's something like that with the eyes. Now I can just work right around the eyes quickly. Oh, well, I'll just leave that there even though I misplaced it. I'm using my hands. If you get tweezers, I recommend these tweezers. These are the official Perler ones. They cost $3 or $4 if you get them at a craft store. I'll show them up on this camera too. The reason I recommend these is they have little pins at the top. So I have the tweezers mostly for when I make a mistake. If I needed to fix his glove, for example, there's no way I'm getting my finger in there to get that glove out. I'm going to need to use the tweezers to pick it out. Even then, it's kind of a butt. But when it comes to placing, when you're doing it row by row, your fingers are usually faster if you have some practice. If you have really big, my fingers are pretty big and pretty fat, so they're not ideal for bead spriting, but they're still quite a bit faster than if I tried to do it tweezer to tweezer. That's a very good question, though, Nickwick. Thank you. I guess just do what works for you. I mean, you could try, I was mentioning earlier, let's see if I can find it now. I got this crazy newfangled bead spriting pen that they sell now. I tried using it before stream and I just couldn't get used to it. Like, you shake it and then you can press a button to dispense a bead. If you got proficient with it, it's probably faster than your fingers. I just couldn't get used to it in time and didn't want to slow things down. Cool. That's that. Let's do the next row. Two. 3. Let's see, actually, might want to do the hat real quick. It's up and to the right, and then 3 brown. You can certainly do the whole thing with tweezers, just, you know, do what is most comfortable for you. Definitely, I would recommend having tweezers no matter what, just so that you can recover if you make a mistake. Because you see how dense the Black Mage is, that's all pixels down there. If I had to fix one of those colors, trying to get in there with my fingers, it's not going to happen. Maybe you could like press down and have it just stick to your hand. Pull it out that way, but even that would be kind of a pain in the butt. Next row. Just going to start from the right this time since we have so much empty space on the left. 1, 2. And then it looks like it's 4 brown. Cool, and then there's 1 black on the other side of the eye. Here. And then 2, 3, 4, 5. Good to, even when you're filling in like this, it's good to count again every so often just to make sure that you're right. You didn't do the same row twice. Now, bead spriting, I understand, is very similar to cross stitching. I've thought about getting into cross stitching too. Just beads are easier to work with, I think. But you can basically do the same thing with cross stitching, as you can pull up a sprite like this in on your computer and then use it as your pattern to work from. I think the issue with cross stitching that makes it difficult is that whenever you change a color, it's kind of a pain in the ass to switch from the color you're currently stitching with to the new one. It's probably less stress overall in cross stitching. Like, there's not the worry that your cat's gonna come by and bump your creation and destroy it. Should be 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to move the whole thing down a little bit so you can see better what I'm working on right now. Cool. Alright, highlight the next row. And go back to placing the black manually again. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 above his head. Cool. Looks like just 1, 2 over on the left. I'm going to start bringing in some cheddar here. Cool, and then the rest is brown. Brown doesn't exactly match the actual color. The actual color is more of like a dark, like puke green, basically. But like I said earlier, it doesn't matter that you match the colors exactly. It matters that you match the shades right. The colors on the Chrono Trigger sprites that are behind me are nowhere near what they originally are on the Super Nintendo, but you can't tell. Like, if you held it up next to the sprite, you could tell, but it clearly looks like those characters. No question about it. So we got 4 and then 4 on both sides. Assuming I'm looking at the right row here. Four. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd like to see if I can find, maybe not for today, but I want to find someone who's done a like custom Mass Effect sprite. That would be really cool to do. Do like a Garrus or a Tali. Or I've seen some people who've done them in sprite art online. I personally would recommend you stop around Super Nintendo. GBA is probably fine. Don't mess around too much with like modern PC game sprites. You can certainly do them, but they tend to have a lot more color density. You know, rather than this one only has what? Let's see, black, brown, cheddar, and blue. This has 4 colors total. The more recent the game, the more color density it's going to be used, the harder it's going to be to find all the beads you need, and the easier it'll be to make small mistakes. You can certainly attempt them, not to discourage it, but especially if you're just starting out, I'd stick with something simple. NES is as simple as you're going to get. Goes there. Yeah. N7 logo would be pretty cool. I think people have done sprites of that. To Pong. Pong is about as simple as you get. You plan on making a big Perler. What's a good way of storing them? Check the subreddit I posted. It's reddit.com/r/beadsprites. There's a method on the right side called the masking tape method. I'm not going to be doing it today, but you can do it for 2 reasons. One, it makes it so you can iron your bead sprites without doing it on the pegboard, which keeps them from warping and melting. I just have so many pegboards from buying them over time. This was like my hobby where every paycheck I'd spend, you know, $15, $20 on Perler beads and slowly amassed a big collection of beads. Anyway, masking tape will let you combine designs and store them safely without having to leave them out. If you don't have any pets or small children who can break stuff, you can certainly just leave them out on your craft table like you would a jigsaw puzzle. But if you have like cats or dogs or something, or small children, I wouldn't advise doing that. All of my big projects I've either done in one sitting, or I've done them on a craft table where there aren't any animals or small humans that could get in the way and destroy them. Thank you for the link, Sanguine. Now give the masking tape method a try. I've done it once. It certainly works. It's like 3 brown. We're almost done, guys. It's pretty exciting. It's looking really good. 3 and then 4 cheddar, it looks like. Cool. And the next row. Let's see, it looks like it starts black here. 2, 3. Then 1, 2 over here to finish out the hat. And 1, 2 brown and 3 cheddar. Four cheddar. But I counted. Yeah, so it's a lot harder to make a mistake. You notice how Dead Pixie caught 3 or so mistakes for me when I was doing the robes. That's because the robes are pretty much the same thing just over and over. Black, black, blue, blue. There's no discernible features. But as soon as I got to the gloves and then the face and the hat, once you have more discernible features, it's easier for your brain to pick up if you've made a mistake. Is that the one I just did? Let me double check. Actually, speaking of making mistakes, there we go. Two, 3. That time I caught it. See? And then we got 1 on the far right, and then 3 cheddar in between. Nice. Yeah, that's a good way to do it, Dead Pixie. I think it's 108 characters in each Suikoden game. Sounds right. This one goes up and to the right, and that's the last brown. 2 there, and 2 black on the left. That's another cool thing with Perler beads is you can customize. If you want to have, you know, a slightly altered palette, you can give him red gloves. You don't need to follow the template exactly. I could probably make a bead sprite of so that my channel icon is one of the characters in my D&D game. It's a modified sprite of Sigma for Mega Man X that I modified. I could probably make that into a bead sprite one day. That'd be pretty cool. A bigger project, maybe 3 pegboards or so. Last 4 it looks like. All right. And we're done, so let's review. That started from nothing. Pretty exciting. Alright, so again, I'm going to give myself room to iron. So let me move this out of the way, get rid of this Harry Potter book that I'm using for space. Plug my iron back in. Spray my cat so he doesn't jump up and get in the way. Cool. Got my iron chilling out now, heating up. Keep things away from it, gotta be safe. Grab this is the same parchment paper I just used to do Zelda and Link. We're gonna use it again for the Black Mage, just cover it. Either do parchment paper or they actually sell Perler ironing paper. I just prefer the parchment paper because you can do a big roll of it. If you were to do multiple pegboards with the typical ironing sheets, you'd have to layer them on top of each other, and it's just a place where you can make a mistake, right? If you have to layer your paper like this, you might cause one of the pieces of paper to slip while you're ironing and might screw it up. So if you use the parchment paper, you can just pull off a big roll and cut it as big as you need it to be. After this one, I'm going to take a quick break to drink something. My throat's starting to get dry, but then we'll continue on to the next sprite. Which is going to be user vote. So why don't we get started on that now? Next sprite is anything you guys want. It doesn't just have to be with these basic colors. I'm also willing to use my personal collection, which I'll show you guys. I would prefer to do a Super Nintendo sprite, and I prefer to do one that is less than 3 pegboards, so 10 for something small. Good examples would be a Final Fantasy VI sprite would be really cool since we're playing Final Fantasy VI right now. If you want to just jump onto Spriter's resource yourself and look at some different games, something from Zelda would be cool. Yeah, for sure, D-Rock. So if you guys have any strong feelings on a Super Nintendo one to do next. Let me look at this Dissidia Warrior of Light you're talking about without taking it off my screen here. Check out my laptop. Superman 64. Y'all are monsters. Excuse me. Triforce would be good so that Zelda can be holding it. Kami, can you link me into the sprite? I'm trying to find it, but maybe you can beat me to it. FF Record Keeper. I see it. Cool, thank you. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I could do that. Let me look at it and see exactly how big it is. And double check and make sure I have the right colors for it as well. My size is pretty reasonable on that. But where's the just basic standing animation? I don't really see several walking animations. I haven't done a new from Chrono Trigger, that might be cool. Yeah, so the Warrior of Light is a good example of a recent game where it's pretty color dense. It might be good to practice on one of those. Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, I can try to do that. Now what I can't find is it looks like the default like just standing animation. Let me click on your link here. The default standing animation is whited out on Spriter's resource. So Dead Pixie, I've already done that one. Let me show you real quick. I just don't have it behind me. Actually, we did a custom. My friend and I made that one. We did a custom colors theme for it. It's actually that exact sprite you're talking about. I think you'll like it. Can't really, not the best quality image, but there it is. And I'll bring your Black Mage back up here in a sec, D-Rock. We did that color scheme with like black and then dark red and then orange and then yellow. So it looks like it's like glowing and like highlighting the area around it, and then the edges of the crest are dark. Alright, let's go ahead and get to ironing this thing, and we'll take the short break. Give myself a little bit more room to iron first. Again, for ironing, you want to put pressure on the whole bead sprite, and you want to go in a smooth circular motion, pressing down the whole time. You can look at the bead sprite mid-iron and you can tell which beads have and have not been melted. They have a very distinct look to them. They turn darker in color and they adhere closely to the parchment paper, to the ironing paper that you're using. So you can know whether you're done or not by looking for that sign. Remember, don't hesitate to rotate. And remember that every iron has hot spots, so try to take advantage of those if you're finding a part that isn't melting the way you want it to. Let me bring the camera back on real quick just to show you the difference. Back to ironing. My hot spots on my iron are all the way at the very tip, so if I want to focus on a particular area, I need to usually rotate it to get on there. Yeah, so it's very easy to tell whether you've successfully melted or not melted a bead yet. I talked earlier when we were ironing Zelda that there's two approaches to ironing. One is to try to leave the little donut holes in the beads, which is to not over melt, as they call it, to use like a lower heat setting. I personally prefer the look of them being melted all the way down so that they're basically squares and the donut hole is filled in. So I use a high heat setting. Also, that's harder to screw up. It's much easier to screw up if you're trying to leave it on low heat by melting for too long. There we go. I was having a little trouble getting the very bottom row, but I just had to press down a little bit harder and use the hot spot on the iron to get it. Yeah, it's looking pretty good though. Give it another rotate. Got a few donut holes that I want to fill in with a little bit more heat here. That's your next way of knowing if it's done enough, is check and make sure that the gaps in between the beads appear to be filled in, that the holes of the beads themselves are melted. If you prefer the hole style, you can always, when you put up your bead sprite, just flip it, because the back side of the bead sprite is going to be, you know, it's not going to be melted. So it'll still look beady, it'll look pixely. This looks pretty good. You can even see it from a distance there on the camera. You can make out that this is the Black Mage, right? Looks like the vote right now for the next sprite is the Warrior of Light. If you'd like to see a different sprite from like Final Fantasy VI, pretty much anything for Super Nintendo would be fine. Mega Man would be cool too, Mega Man X sprite. But go ahead and vote. If you've got sphere points, the channel has a special kind of currency that you earn just by being in chat. If you feel particularly strongly about a specific bead sprite, you can spend sphere points on it. Say !SP to check your current sphere point count. I think we're done ironing this guy. Probably stop. Okay, so we're gonna let it cool for a sec, and then I'm gonna very carefully remove the parchment paper here. One thing that I didn't mention, before you iron, make sure that if there's like, you know, you're a human, so you shed hair and skin every now and then. Make sure you check the beads that there's not any stray hairs. Especially if you have pets, not any stray hairs or cat hairs lying around, because they will get in the beads, they will get melted into the beads, and then getting it out is kind of hard. Now, you probably won't be able to notice it unless you're looking super close, but I've had a couple beads where a tiny hair or an eyelash will be in there. D-Rock might be able to beat you. I think he's got the most in chat right now. D-Rock or Hapax. Alright, so this is a bigger sprite, so I'm going to be very careful removing it. What I'm doing is I'm going to all the edges. I'm not just like picking him up by the hat and then pulling, because it might cause his hat to bend and rip. I'm going to each of the edges and I'm just lightly pulling each individual bead until I feel it pop up off of the pegboard. Now I melted the right side a little bit more, so it's much more closely affixed to the pegboard. I got to actually use my fingernail to get those guys. There, cool. So see, already this guy's already starting to like flare up on the edges, so we got to do the same thing. He ends up looking really good. Well, that's if D-Rock chooses to spend it. If he spends those sphere points, Kami, then they're gone. He doesn't get influence over his next thing. So we end up using those both for stuff like this and for like on free play days to pick which game we play. So his edges are starting to flare up already. I don't want them to bend upward like that, so I'm going to go put it under my book, and I think Zelda's been sitting under the book long enough that I can sub her out now. So let me go do that here. Yeah, this is pretty great. This is going to go on the back wall. I'm really proud with that. There's your Black Mage. Awesome. Alright, and now Zelda has sufficiently flattened. She's not bending up at the corners anymore. We've got Zelda and we've got Link. So later I'm going to find a way to place both of them on the wall behind me. Zelda's in kind of her action stance. She probably needs to have a Triforce above her. That would be kind of boring to watch though, because the Triforce is like, I think it's just one color in the NES. So I'll do that off screen sometime and add that. Yeah, there you go. Zelda and Link, and now the Black Mage is cooling. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and grab something to drink real quick. I'm going to leave the pattern up for D-Rock. D-Rock, when I do the Warrior of Light, I'll walk through again how I got that pattern in the first place, so if you're still a little bit behind, no big deal. You can just repeat that process and get your own pattern up to finish it. I know what you're talking about, Dead Pixie. Excuse me, princess. Alright, so I guess next thing I'll show you guys real quick before we move on to the Warrior of Light is decoration. I mentioned, and I have up there on the screen, that you can decorate with magnets, although you'd have to use a glue gun to affix the magnet to the back. You can make them into coasters, although you'd have to use a glue gun to affix the corkboard to the back. Or you can just use masking tape, which I think I'm actually out of masking tape, so I'm just going to use some duct tape. I use a whole roll of masking tape for all of the Beadsprite decorations I have around my house. Just double checking to see if I have any. Yeah, I'll just use some duct tape. Duct tape is fine, like masking tape is a little bit better, it's a little bit easier to remove, it doesn't pull any paint with it, but we've already lost our security deposit in this apartment, so I don't really care. Hey Bubbles the monkey, how's it going? Good to have you. Alright, so all I'm doing to put this up, I'm just taking some tape. I'll loop it back around on itself, just like you'd hang anything else up. Put the tape on the back of the Beadsprite. I'm just going to push it on the wall, and it's going to stick. And this will, if with masking tape, it'll probably hold for like a year or so before you have to replace the tape. Let's put her here for now. Let's see, where's somewhere that's visible right now? We'll put him. She can be holding up the cool mask. There. And you can apply more tape depending on the Beadsprite. I'm clicking your link here, Bubbles. Oh God. I'm so sorry. What were you making? It looks like it's like a Charmander or something? I was just telling everybody there's a lot of folks who are new to Beadspriting. Usually on this channel I do gaming. I'm trying to play through every good game that's ever been made at least once live on stream. And people have seen the Beadsprites behind me and been like, how do you make those? I'm doing this as a tutorial. But I was telling a lot of the folks here who are new to beating, like, hey, if you do this, it's really cool, but you're going to have gore, you're going to have a disaster. It's not a question of if it's going to happen, it's when. So just be ready for it, be patient. Oh, awesome, Bubbles. That's a good choice. That's a very good choice. There. So maybe we'll find a better place to position these guys later. See, there's a good use of this sprite that she's holding up the mask. It's kind of cool. Black Mage is still flattening. Why don't I show you guys my collection real quick before we get into this Warrior of Light sprite, because I think that's going to take the remainder of the time. So I'll show you what I've got in my apartment, and then we'll start doing the last sprite for the day. Give me 1 sec to pull that up. Just kind of give you an idea of what you could do, you know, give you some creative inspiration, things you can do with Bead sprites. And I got some more images that I can pull up here in a sec. I had to pull those off Facebook without like showing my Facebook URL live on stream. Yeah, so check it out. So we got this cool Hyrule Crest. My friend Hey Pax, who I think is in chat right now, he came over. We did a beading session. You know, you can go in on this with your friends. Everybody go in and buying a bunch of beads, and then just have like a weekend event where everybody gets together and does this. It's actually pretty cool. Talks about gaming, that sort of a thing. So you got like a Mega Man that's hanging off the edge of the wall with a zero. I did this as a sprite commission for somebody. Put a Pikachu next to the wall outlet. I thought that made sense. You know, I got Chill Penguin and Heat Man around the thermostat. You've seen these guys, they're behind me. This is a picture of my wife jumping, put a little spiny underneath it. So another commission of you know, some pictures in the apartment where Sonic is like hanging over the edge as he falls, and he jumps up and he follows the rings. Got Bionic Commando, got a cool Ninja Gaiden, Castlevania. You can use them to label your cabinets in the kitchen. So like when people say, "Hey, where are your cups?" I'm like, "Go to the empty bottle cabinet, or go to the Spyro cabinet." I did this as someone's birthday present. They really liked the Big Lebowski, so I made her a dude from the Big Lebowski, and I got a cool little banana on my trash can. The dude, indeed. And I've got some other little ones here. Some other ones are around my apartment right now. Yeah, so like I saw this cool part of my apartment and I was like, man, that would be a really great place to have like things racing. So I've got Mario Kart chasing each other. My wife wanted the Barbie versus the Bad outfit for the NES. Our shoe rack, I've got Mario in a Karibo shoe. In the bathroom, I've got Mario in a frog suit. And then more of our cabinets, like, oh, just go in the Spyro cabinet to get plates. Oh, that's awesome, Dead Pixie. Do you do pixel art in general, Dead Pixel? Or your Pixel, I keep seeing a lowercase l over here. You haven't corrected me, thank you. I'll shoot you a follow. I use Chatty, which unfortunately drops the casing on everything, and I can't really tell L's from I's very well on a glance. Alright, let's do this Warrior of Light thing. It's a record keeper. Final Fantasy record keeper, right? Here it is. Right on. Cool. I might hit you up for if you do pixel art, I might hit you up for a commission anyway. I need some custom stuff. Everything I have is like a modified regular game sprite, which I kind of want to stay away from. Alright, so this one doesn't have the basic standing sprite, which is what I think I'd want to use. Let me turn the grid off real quick. So I don't know which one of these other ones I'd use, and I guess this is the basic standing sprite right here. Okay, lots of colors in this one. So you guys are going to have to bear with me. I'm going to go get my Beadsprite box. That's the last thing you might want to think about. If you get super serious into Beadspriting, you probably want to get a container to store everything. I showed off on our Beadsprites. There's some places you can go. You can like use water bottles, for example. But here is my, this is ridiculous. This is the only time I'm going to show this on stream because it's a huge pain in the ass to move around. This came from the Container Store, which like, why would anyone go to the Container Store? Who cares? I cared. I wanted something to have all my beads. So like each one is sorted by color. I have them in Ziploc baggies so they don't fall out. But get one of these if you get really serious about bead spriting. Go to the Container Store, find one of these guys that has a little pull-out containers, and you will be good to go for all the colors that you use. Let me put this beast down, and then search through it and find colors that match this Warrior of Light guy. So it looks like we've got, let's see, let's look color by color. We have dark blue, medium blue, and a light blue. So I'll start with that. looks like this would be a good dark blue. Medium blue, I might just be able to use my default here. Got like a sky blue. That should be good. Are you light blue? You're like almost lavender. That might be too light. Gotta have like a sky blue in here, I think. That looks a little bit closer. Okay. There's our blues. Now I gotta pick. I've got a red that comes with this kit here, but then there's like a salmon color right here. I gotta pick a salmon. I'm pretty sure I have one of those. I will tell you right now, if you get into bead spriting, salmon is one of the hardest colors to find. Like variations on red, there's really not a lot of like different red colors. There's pretty much just red. You might need to, unless if it's changed significantly since I first started bead spriting, you might need to branch out of just Perler and go to like Hama beads for your other red colors. That's what I ended up having to do. So my dark red is actually a Hama beads red. You'll see that if you look on that Reddit subreddit. It talks about where to get your colors. It'll talk about the option of using Hama beads as well. This is as close to salmon as I'm going to get, I think. So cool. And it looks like we got a yellow, which comes in the main pack. And the orange is close enough to cheddar that I'll just use cheddar. So what other main colors are there? We got black already and some gray. I'm just going to go ahead and get started on this one. Got an hour to do it, so I'm trying to knock it out here. Beats. Sorry, I was up and looking around. I didn't look at chat. That's pretty good, Mine for Fish. You get grown points. Now this sprite is 16 by 24, which means it's going to fit on our one pegboard here. We should be fine. Let me throw my grid back up and let's get started. I get my book back so you can see the frontal view. Full frontal bead spriting. From the corner back here for now. All right. So he's got quite a bit of empty space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 empty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 black. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 black. Thanks, Ted Pixel. Oh, awesome, Bubbles. Thanks for sharing that. The last time I did bead spriting was about 2.5 years ago, before I moved away from Ohio. And actually, guys, I'm gonna try to do an outline for this one. I've shown everything else, so we did color by color, then we did row by row, and this one has a pretty clear black outline. So I'm gonna start with the outline first. This guy. It'd be all black until we have an outline going. Anyway, I started bead spriting a long time ago and haven't done it since I moved, so new bead spriting technology I have not heard of until just now, so I appreciate the link. That's awesome. Right, let's go up. Looks like I could skip one, black. Skip one, black. And down 2. The outline method I only really recommend if you're doing a sprite like this that happens to have a clear black outline. Like, it wouldn't really work for the Black Mage that we just did. 1, 2, 1, 2. There's a 1 here. Looks like it's 1, 2, 3. Oops. 1, 2. I skipped some black here, so let's fill it in. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like. There's boots. skip one here and do 1, 2. One, 1, 2. The helmet of this character is the helmet that you unlock for getting the collector's edition in Final Fantasy XIV. 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. There's an empty space there. 1. Yes, I think we'll do this one. We'll do outline and then we'll do by color. Would be the easiest way. Awesome, D-Rock. You should post it to Imager when you're totally done with it. After you've let it dry. You go ahead and build up. When I'm doing my outline, I'm making the mistake now of doing it by color, by row, so I should just finish that part. 1, 2, 1, 2. 2, 2. 1. Let me just make sure this count is right. So blank, black, black, blank, blank, black, black, blank, 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 black, blank, black, black. Oh, really? Awesome. I didn't know you could get the full armor. Blank, blank, black. So this this set right here, Mine for Fish, is, I got it for $10 at Michael's. So you can get into beading fairly cheap. It can be really cheap if you go to Cool Stuff for Kids. Let me pull this back up. This place does sales like once a month. For 1,000 beads of a given color, you can get a really good deal. Actually, I'll just leave it in the background here. Yeah, very, very, very reasonable. I would not screw around with the sorting though. You will hate your life pretty quickly. I'm just doing outline now instead of just black. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. We have 2. Looks like there's a space, and then 1, then a blue, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm actually already almost out of the black that comes with the starter kit. So D-Rock, unless if you bought more beads, I wouldn't recommend starting this one because there's a good chance you'll run out since we use so much in Black Mage. Excuse me. One of the advantages to doing the outline is that you very quickly find out if you made a mistake. Because when you come back around, well, first of all, you might hit the edge, and that will tell you that you screwed up. Similarly, when you get back down to the bottom, it should connect, and if it doesn't, then you made a mistake somewhere on the way. My favorite are cherry. 1, 2. 1, 1, 2. Later, technically, Will. Thanks for hanging out. By the way, guys, if you missed any part of this guide, I'm going to be posting the full thing on YouTube tonight after Final Fantasy XIV. Should be available tomorrow, and I'll put a permanent link on the Twitch page so you can go back and catch up, pause where you need to. Hey, Joe Man, how's it going, dude? So we go down to the right and then up 3, 2, 3. And this is really just an issue of following the guide. And down 1, and this should touch the edge, which it looks like it's going to do. I'm show you where I am right now. I'm here. I'm trying to do an outline first. 2, 3 for his fist. I like this record keeper style Like, it looks like they're like, hey, let's make every Final Fantasy character in the style of Final Fantasy VI, which is my favorite graphical style in any Final Fantasy game. I love the battle sprites. Cool, so everything connected. Perfect. We have a completed outline now. There's still more black that needs to be done, but now we can just kind of work on filling in what we've got. So why don't we stick with the color that we were going for before. Let's try and just get this blue out of the way so I can get it off my desk. So let's move this in. Let's start working on blue. D-Rock, take a picture of it with your phone or with whatever. Upload it to imager.com, IMGUR. Oh, it's no problem. You can, I've recorded all of it, gamer, so you'll be able to catch it on YouTube later. Dark blue, space, dark blue. Looks like there's not a lot of actual dark blue on this one. Alright, so this one goes black, black, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. 2. Blue. There's 2 blue up here. Good to have you, Gamer Freak. Yeah, you can catch up on the stuff we already did. Said I'll post on the main page the link. You can check it out. So this is down 1, 2. Down 2. So it's down to the left and then 1. Shit. That's all the dark blue that's in this guy. Let me make sure I'm not missing any. That's everybody though. I see. Well, there's an easy way to do this, right? If you're using paint.net, you can use the magic wand tool and just count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dark blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're good. We can put this one away. Thank you, Lucher Cop. I'm excited. This is by far the toughest one we've done today. We did 2 NES sprites at the beginning. So we're going for a trickier one now. So I'm going to put this dark blue away. We'll go ahead and start up the next blue. Might actually end up needing to use, it looks like there's some more shades of blue than I originally counted, right? So here's 2, 3, 4. And I should be fine for that, I think. So let's do 2 now. Do up here, we got 1, 2, diagonal. We got 1 underneath it. Magic Wand tool is a great boon, especially if you're doing it by color. Just use it to highlight all of them, then just fill them in like that. Magic Wand tool is a tool that feels like it's made for spriting and doing bead spriting in particular. Hey, thank you for the follow. It's good to have you. In that it selects everything that has exactly the same color value as what you did. So if you're not doing a sprite, you know, it's going to be kind of hard to work with. But when you're doing a sprite, there's only, you know, so many colors that are listed. Let me fix this dark blue guy that just dropped. There we go. Oh, using a magic wand? The magic wand is my best friend. When I do, so I do a lot of modified sprites for my Dungeons and Dragons game. Most of the sprites I use in game are just modified sprites from games that I like. And using the magic wand tool is the best way to muck around with them. There's 2 to the right of this dark blue here. Yep, exactly. Bring it to 0% tolerance. Best tool ever. That's why so normally I would just do this in MS Paint because it's, you know, everybody has it. But the benefit of Magic Wand is something you don't have in MS Paint. And Paint.net is basically like slightly advanced MS Paint. I use it. I certainly am proficient with GIMP and with Photoshop, but I like the fact that Paint.net is very lightweight. It boots very quickly, unlike GIMP and Photoshop, which can sometimes take a long time to boot. It also has just enough features that I want and not too many. If I really have a really ambitious project, I might do it in GIMP or Photoshop. Yeah, and that's the other thing, is it's free. Lots of good reasons to use it. It looks like he has even yet another blue for his eyes, so that's only 2 squares, though. I'm sure the game will forgive me if I use a different shade. Even just use this blue shade. Got one here, and up in the corner here. Let's see. Here there's 1, 2, 3. Goes in kind of a N pattern. There should be a URL that you just linked to, D-Rock. I don't know if somebody else could try to help D-Rock figure out Imager. I'd do it if I were playing a game, but I'm trying to knock this out before stream wraps up here. I think that's everybody. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 3. Okay. Actually, it says 34. Now, if we make a mistake, we'll just come back to it. Okay, so now we're going to do the next shade of blue. And I'll be right back. I'm going to go turn on my air conditioning. I've been turning on the iron next to me all the time. It's heating up my area. Quick review of where we are so far. Bird's eye. Getting there. Alright, next blue, let's highlight it with the magic wand. Much less of that. Alright, 1, 2, 3. I'm in hot California. Let's go here. I'm also a furnace, so I get hot very easily. 1, 2... Oh, it's right under the dark blue. Originally from Columbus, Ohio, where I don't believe it's hot right now. Hey, thank you for the follow. It's good to have you. Okay, we just got one here, and then there's one to the left of this dark one. Down at the bottom, we got 2. This is the blue that we used for the Black Mage, by the way. Go, and then there's another dark one here. Got it. Now this one goes here. Got some in between the little N shape there. I do have a YouTube channel, and this entire video is going to get uploaded there. Let me type out the link real quick. It's just youtube.com/Marstead. Everything I do in this channel gets uploaded. There you go. Awesome, D-Rock. I like it. It's like Christmas Black Mage. Alright, I think that's it for light blue. Looks like it. Okay, so now we want to do a lighter blue. there's many shades of blue in this one. Whoa, that was... I think that's the one color in there that's not matching. Let's get rid of that guy. Careful to keep your colors mixed properly. There we go. Yeah, exactly. It is unlimited. You can have as many videos as you want, so I just upload everything and figure I get a free Let's Play out of every game I play live on Twitch. Yeah, no problem, D-Rock. Awesome job. Now you know Beadspriting. Now you can do this. D-Rock, you're one of the people who donated to fund this. I've been talking about doing this for the longest time. You know, the main purpose of this channel, I try to play through really good games. I want to get through at least one playthrough of every good game ever made live on the stream. And a lot of people will pop in and be like, hey, what's up with those Beadsprites? And I'm like, oh, I made those. And like, oh, can you tell me how? And I say, yeah, but you know, maybe some other time. So I made a donation incentive that said, hey, if you guys donate a total of $50 together, I'll go ahead and buy the materials to do a introduction to Beadspriting video. So thanks to D-Rock and Ninja Moneybags and Bessel and some other folks, we were able to do this. It's very exciting. I think that's it for light blue. Let me go ahead and do white since it's like the natural next color to do. I think I'm just going to use the regular blue for his eyes, because look, his eyes are, technically that's the only blue. And can you even tell the difference between that blue and that blue? Because I cannot. So I'm just going to say, screw it, those are the same color. Thank you, Cop, I appreciate that. Good to have you. Yeah, you'll get a notification whenever I post a new video, which is almost every weekday. Okay. Wait. Wait. We're getting somewhere with this guy. He's starting to look more complete. So my wife says a supermodel can tell the difference. She's referring on Super Nintendo Day. We just did a day where we said, hey, we're going to play a whole bunch of different games. You know, people in chat can vote on what we play. One of the games voted was Barbie Supermodel for the Super Nintendo. There are 2 difficulties in that game. One of them is Junior Model and one of them is Supermodel. And I played it on Supermodel. But I kept complaining that, hey, I can't tell the difference between like pink and salmon. Part of the game is that you have to like tell the difference between different like outfits and different lipsticks. And I kept getting it wrong. And my wife would be like, a Supermodel would be able to tell the difference. It sounds like a Junior Model. Junior Model mistake. 2. Let's just go with the blue because they're the same. Blue. Oops. Oh shit, I just screwed up a black, but I think I was able to fix it. Alright, so white, blue, dark blue, all that's done. I think it's time to do red. We don't have 2. We've got red and salmon. Sure, Cop. I think this is going to be the last one we get to today. I don't know if we're going to have time to do another one, but I would love to do another Beadspriting session live on stream, so if you make a suggestion, I'll do it next time for sure. 1, 2... This goes here. This is the 3rd one. They do take a little bit of time, especially the more complex ones like this one. This has a lot of different colors. It's here. Got, let's see, black, red. Did Zelda and Black Mage, which I'll put up the Black Mage and display it at the end here. It's currently being flattened. Actually, just did Zelda right here. I might need to do a more complex Zelda. This is the NES one that's behind us. No, it would be cool to do like the Link to the Past Zelda, or like even go even crazier and do like, I think you can find a sprite of Tetra. Right, it's salmon time. Yeah, sure. No, I would be delighted to do more complex Zelda like the Link to the Past version. Why don't we plan on that for the next one? Sure, I can just show it here. There's Zelda holding up the mask, and Link, which I made this morning as a test. And I haven't put up the Black Mage yet. I'll show it off at the very end once it's fit. Right now we've got it under a book to keep it flat. When you finish ironing these, because it's just plastic, they tend to start to warp. So as soon as you're done ironing them, it's suggested that you put them on a flat surface and put like a heavy book on top of it. Keep them flat. They might still warp over a very long time, like over the space of years. If they do, it's not a big deal. You know, just you can run the iron over them again and then place the book on top of them. The trick never stops working. I think this one's going to look really cool when it's done. I have my kitty you done fucked up now spray at the ready for when my cat shows up to try to paw at this. Okay, I think this is the last salmon. Cool, salmon's done. Now let's do yellow, why not? Get these other ones out of the way. Give an update on what he's looking at right now. He's starting to look like a person. We got some pretty important colors we still need to fill in, along with several of his black still left to do. Hey Basie, thanks for the follow. It's good to have you. Alright, so yellow is just, let's highlight them here. Okay, cool. 2. 1 down in the corner. Here. That one's going to be a little harder to find, I think. Go. There's one right here. Right, because it goes 1, 2, yeah. So then it's 1, 2, 3, and then yellow. Two, 3, 4. The hardest one that I've done, probably that that Zelda. Let me see if I still have it available to show you. Or I'll paste it back in. This one was tough because it was I did a custom color scheme for it. I've done bigger ones than this one, but it was kind of hard to iron because it was a lot of different pieces. Like just because it's so wide and it's got tight connections, I had to use a lot of different pegboards and I had to be careful while ironing it. Doing the color scheme was pretty cool though, where it looks like it's like glowing over top of like cold iron. That might be the hardest one. Let's see. Corner 2, 3, and then there's one right there. Yeah, I've got some other good ones around the apartment. Anytime I do this, I'll show them off again because I think it's kind of cool to give people ideas. If you haven't yet, go to reddit.com or Beadsprites. It's the subreddit. Lots of really good. If you sort by top of all time, you'll see some of the best ones that people have ever made, and there's some really impressive ones. There's the Kefka Tower from the end of. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. From the end of Final Fantasy VI. It's probably the most impressive one I've ever seen. It's gigantic. That or the Amaterasu from Okami. Also pretty huge. One, 2, 3. Yeah, thank you, Sanguine. I'm gonna have to make a decision here soon as to what flavor of brown I'm gonna use for the dark yellow. I could use cheddar, which is like a dark yellow, or I could just use brown, but I think that this guy is intended to be kind of flamboyantly colored, so I think I'm gonna use cheddar instead. I think it's gonna look better if we do that. I think that's it for yellow. Let me click them and make sure here. Alright, so we got 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Yeah, yellow's done. Yeah, Dead Pixel. We've been playing Okami on stream lately, actually. Yes, make sure you put down the parchment paper or the ironing paper, or the beads are going to melt to your iron. Yeah, put down. You can press down pretty hard. Like when you're having trouble getting it to melt, you probably want to press down harder. Is what you want to change. Yeah. My wife is right. So basically, my nephew, I was trying to explain to him, he was building a computer. He's like 11 years old, so we were helping him build it over Wii U chat. It was pretty cool. But anyway, I was trying to explain how sweet are graphics processing units. Like, how many pixels do they have to draw per second? Could you think about it? Like, this is a 16 by 24 Beadsprite, and I'm about 30 minutes into it, and I'm not anywhere near being done yet. A graphics processing unit has to make the equivalent of a 1920 by 1080 Beadsprite 60 times per second, and it can do that. It's super impressive. Can knock this guy out from right here. And be careful, sometimes you'll knock stuff away while you're placing. Just gotta remember where it was, find it. Yeah, I hear that. Don't want to get banned. Just don't cheat. I think Cheddar was the right decision. If this were a more muted sprite, like the characters from Final Fantasy VI are very, very dark color palette, you wouldn't want to use Cheddar here because it's too bright. You'd want to use brown. But this character is extremely garrulous and brightly colored, so I think that Cheddar was the right choice for this that I'm doing right now, even though it looks more like brown on the screen. Sec. Yeah, I think this one's gonna look awesome when it's ironed, assuming I don't screw it up. That's always a real fear. I have screwed up ironing before, so it could happen. People were talking earlier about speed spriting, which would be bead spriting like in a race. So you have like on the screen, you know, if you watch speedrunners, they have like, you know, different points in the game that they need to get to, and they'll say if it's their personal best or not. So have like periwinkle color, 6 minutes PB. Got that. I think I actually might be done on Cheddar. Let me double check though. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. Oh, there's one I'm missing. Glad I checked. One. Lots of isolated Cheddar. 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. Okay, Cheddar's done. All right, let's do gray. Got dark gray and light gray. I got to get those out of my extended box. Oh, that'd be cool to do on Minecraft. I used to do beads or spriting in Minecraft quite a bit when I played it. So that's black. That's gray. It can be tough to find the different shades of gray when you're building your collection, but I think I've got a dark gray and a light gray. Yeah. Although I think there's really just one because we've used. Is this? Oh, there's only 3 of the light gray color. That's okay. We're ready for it. That's what matters. So 1, 2. Shoot. This is where we want to use the tweezers now. There's so many beads around it that if we tried to use our fingers, we'd probably screw the whole thing up. Here, down into the right of it, 2, 2 gray over here, so 1 is 2 up. It's right there. Maybe not actually. Goes. Yeah, looks like that's done. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yep. Yep, things are serious when you bring in the tweezers, that's correct. Alright, now there's only 3 light grays, but hey, I've got the color, I may as well use it. Okay, so I think everything else might just be black. I think we've got every other color. Let me go ahead and finish out the black real quick so we can try to confirm that theory. Probably going to need to grab some more black. I'm almost out for my wool here. Okay, so this row is all done. That looks right. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Gamer freak. Yeah, indeed. Look for black as it relates to all the other colors, right? Lots of black in this one. Black. Just make sure that the gaps all make sense. Alright, 1 sec. Let me get... I just ran out of black for my starter kit. It's good for doing a few NES sprites to see if you're prepared for bead spriting, if it's something that you want to do, but you're definitely going to have to buy more than that. Black, most of all, that is probably the most common color in any sprite. It is very zen. Enjoy it for that reason. Oh, we gotta do... I forgot about flesh, didn't I? Alright, we can do that here in a sec. Got a couple flesh options. We got like cream, I think, will be one. It's a little too pale. So he's got pink and then like a darker fleshy color. Our guy is going to be a little bit lighter skinned than this character, just because that's the color of flesh that I have. I know, right, D-Rock? Put him in another room or you're going to pay for it. These are Hama beads that I'm using for this flesh color. Wondering if I should back out. They don't quite melt the same, but you can't really tell unless if you're really close up, so I'm just going to let it go. It's only 2 beads. They melt a little bit differently. Just enough to be irritating. Not enough to really be noticeable, though. Sounds like someone was pointing out that there are new options that don't require the use of Hama beads, though. Let me see, I think I got one more blue. Maybe I can fix his eye real quick. Do I have any, like... I think that's probably fine. Nope, that's not the color I want. gonna sub his eyes out and make them a slightly different color, even though I can't tell the difference in the sprite proper. Cool. Now to just see if we can do black for all the remaining spaces. I think we can. Black. And at the end we'll do a final count and just make sure that all the bead counts in each row are correct. Base can be pretty clumsy. Mistake here. What's the mistake though? It's that I forgot some salmon. It's okay, it's easy to fix. Just a happy little accident. You get to enjoy some more bead spriting. So there's 2 salmon that I missed here. Cool. Back to black. The song it's playing is from Bravely Default, which is an excellent game. Excellent game. The 3DS. If you're a fan of JRPGs, it is probably the best JRPG that's been made in the last 5 years or so. Whew. Good reason to use the tweezers there. It's gonna have to end with a scan for missing black, I think. That's gonna be where I'm missing stuff here at the end. Oh, it's like a little cat hair got in there. Get up with the tweezers. Otherwise that will get ironed onto the final product. Mint Wizard, welcome. So this goes here. Got all black around this guy. Looks like it. It's looking done. I'm excited. This will be fun to see what it looks like when it's done being ironed. Super Nintendo sprites, or sprites that have a lot of colors in them, tend to look really, really good when you finish ironing them. I think I made a mistake here, but I think I can fix it without too much trouble. I think I just gotta move these all down 1. Yeah, whew. I was like, oh man, I think I missed a whole row, but I didn't. I just put those yellows in the wrong spot. But it's fixable. It's one of the stresses of doing it outline and by color like I just did. Like if I had screwed up that row and didn't find out until just now, I would have had to wipe out the entire top 1/3 of the sprite and start it over. So if you do it the way I showed in the Black Mage part, which is do it by row, starting from the bottom, you're much less likely to make a mistake like that late in the game. You'll notice it as soon as it happens. So I still in general recommend that method. So getting there. Oh, Fire Emblem, that's a good choice. Yeah, so I think this is going to be the last spread I do for today, just because we're wrapping up at 3 o'clock Pacific, which is in 20 minutes. But I would love to do this again on stream. Next time, it looks like I've got a better quality Zelda sprite, so like a Link to the Past level. We'll do that one, and then a Fire Emblem character would be good. Do you have any particular Fire Emblem characters in mind? Is there a really good one? Go okay? No panics, D-Rock? Oh man, this is looking really good. I gotta not let myself get too excited because it's still, I could still screw it up pretty badly. Awesome. Good to hear, man. Yeah, doing it the first time, you kind of get the feel of how you're supposed to use the iron. Ah. Yeah, so fixing that, you should still be able to correct that if you put the thing back on the pegboard, if you haven't already fixed it by some other means. But that is solvable. It's not game over if that happens. I can't really tell you what I do to keep that from happening. Oh, sure. But yeah, well, if you run the iron over the whole thing again and then put it under your book to flatten it, that might fix the crease a little bit. But it's not the end of the world. I'm sure it still looks fine, and it's the kind of problem that you wouldn't notice unless if you were like right up next to it. A Crom could be cool. I could do the female avatar if someone's made a sprite for it. Okay, this is looking really good. I think we're almost done. I gotta do a quick pass on black to make sure that I've put black in all the right spots. I think there's some that's still missing. Alright, let's check them out. See, yeah, it looks pretty sweet. It's gonna look even better when we iron them. So let me do my quick pass in black and just make sure that we've got the right colors everywhere. Let's see. On the bottom we should have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is. Now I look at the bottom when I highlight it, it tells me how many pixels I've highlighted, so I can quickly check. 5, 10, space 2. Okay, that's right. This whole line should be 13. Yep, that looks right. Should be unbroken. Yep, that looks right. It's good. One over to the left, but otherwise unbroken. Yep, it's good. Over to the left again. Yep, that's great. Same, but then stops one early. Yep. Same, and then 2 to the left. Yep. Same. I hear your point, AMA. I might just do that. So she's talking about the stability of these hanging beads on the side, particularly like right here. It might be good to put some clears there. I'll think about it. He's not quite as bad as some of the other ones I've done, but this is where I'm most worried. When we say hanging beads, we mean that like the bead is only connected by a diagonal. So if you see any beads that are connected only by a diagonal or not horizontally attached or vertically attached, let me know. I think that they're all horizontally or vertically attached, at least one other bead, so we should be okay. But for example, if there was a black that was like right here, that would be a bad one because there's nothing to the left, right, top, or bottom of it, so we would need to use clear in order to connect that one. But I think everybody else has at least one connecting bead, top or bottom. If you notice one that does not meet that requirement, let me know, and I'll use a clear bead around it. Very good call, though. Control-Z it up here. Alright, back to counting. That looks good. Should be all the way across. Yep. This one should be all the way but one down. Yep. That is fine. It's good. That looks good. Yep. 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 Call that like an orphan bead when there's one that's just hanging by a diagonal by itself. Yep. Space and then 2. Yep. Yeah, probably wouldn't do now. I might do the chick that's in the multiple Fire Emblem games, or maybe like a Marth would be good. Okay, yeah, he's good. He's done. All right, so I'm gonna move the camera to face this so we can make some room for the ironing part. Get it so it's not rotating. Plug the iron back in. Let's start praying, because I'm still in a place where I could screw this up. My cat keeps getting pretty close. I'm gonna give it a look really, really close and make sure there's not any like cat hairs or Dylan hairs. Anything that would get sealed into the Beadsprite when I melt it. I'm gonna look for those before you start ironing. I think we're okay. Don't see anything. Lynn would be good. Yeah, bubbles, that's a good way to handle it. I agree. So AMA made the very good suggestion of put some clear beads on there, because there are some beads that are just kind of hanging off on the edges. And the reason I'm not doing that is because it looks like every single bead is connected horizontally or vertically to at least one other bead. But if I had an orphan black one, like off here in the distance, then I'd want to put some clear beads around it to get it to connect. Otherwise it wouldn't really be, there wouldn't be any plastic sealing it to the rest of the sprite. Oh, I gotta let the iron, I turned it on but didn't activate it. There we go. It has to like touch a flat surface before it actually starts heating up. Okay, so just chilling for a bit here now while we wait on the iron to heat up. Let me go check on the Black Mage. Probably should just feed the cat so that they don't freak out and like jump on my desk and ruin this before it's done. Yeah, so check it out. Here is the completed Black Mage. It looks really, really good. I'm very happy with that. Very clean, looks exactly like the NES version. That's with Perler brown, cheddar, light blue, and black. That just comes with the starter kit. So if you wanted, this would be a really good introductory sprite if you want to get into bead spriting. You can see how the back looks a little bit different. If I wanted them to face the other way, it's more pixelated. You can see the little holes in the bead. Yeah, I'm really happy with this Black Mage. It looks very solid. I'm going to go ahead and hang him up behind us along with everybody else. Very pleased with the Black Mage. Again, in order to hang him up, just use masking tape or duct tape. If you have masking tape, I'd recommend it. It lasts for about a year before you have to replace it. You'll know when you'll have to replace it because the bead sprite will start falling off the wall. Duct tape will last a little bit longer, but it'll also take some of the wall with it sometimes. Just don't use a lot of it. This is a bigger sprite than the Zelda or the Link, so I'm giving him 2 spots of tape. I'm just kind of folding it over on itself and then putting it on the back of the sprite. You might want to make a tiny strip of tape for anything that's sort of hanging out there, like this Black Mage's hat is peeking out into the corner, so I'm going to make a very small strip of tape on the back. I'll show you guys what the back looks like before I hang it. But this is an easy way to put it on the wall. Awesome, D-Rock. I thought that would be a good choice. Yeah, so this is what the back of the sprite looks like now with the tape on it. And I'm just going to press him firmly on the wall back here somewhere where I can find another space. Let's see, what typically is actually visible when I'm streaming. Starting to run space thin, maybe you can fit down here. I just want to just put him right here. I'll put the Warrior of Light on the other side. Yeah, so there you go. Black Mage. Looks really good. I really like how the outline works on that sprite. He looks awesome. That way it's really easy. You're not leaving any holes in your apartment wall, you know. Okay, iron's almost ready. I'm just letting it heat up a little bit more before we start this last one. Pray to RN Jesus for me and any other deities that would prevent me from screwing up this ironing job. After this ironing job, I'm going to take a quick break to feed the cats, but I'll still be around to answer questions and stuff. If you had any last minute questions or requests for next time. Next session, I think I'll put the next Beadsprite session down as another donation incentive, although it won't be as high since I already have the base materials now. You know, I went and bought the starter kit. So the next session would probably be more like $25 as a donation incentive, and I'll add that to the page. But this will be permanently linked on my YouTube. You'll be able to go back and watch it, pause it when you need to if you want to try to make these same sprites. If you've never done bead sprites before, I recommend doing that Black Mage. As D-Rock pointed out, it's very good for starter sprite. Only has 4 colors and ends up looking really good. You can do it line by line. Yeah, poster stuff would be even better if you can find that Bubbles is talking about. I don't have any, and I haven't thought of using it because I'm not smart like Bubbles is. I mentioned this a little bit earlier too. You might want to make one of these. This is a palette that I made. I'll put it in the better camera here. I made this just by taking all the colors I had available to me and melting a bunch of squares together. That way you can see what your colors will look like when they're melted, and then flip it on the back to see what they look like before they melt them, because sometimes they look a little bit different post-melting. Alright, I think Moment of Truth is here. Let's go ahead and iron. Hope for the best. I suppose that's true. First camera's got lower like color and exposure quality. I might need to get a higher quality camera for the next time. That's probably what I'll use if I make it a donation incentive to do another video. I'll get a tripod so I can hook one up permanently that's in a better position for everyone to be able to see. I'm really hopeful about this one because it's such a cool sprite with all the different colors. It's a really neat design. Just have her hand stand behind me. She's got more important stuff to do, man. AMA is a astrophysicist trying to find dark matter from indirect interactions in space, looking for gamma rays that might be evidence of dark matter. Ain't got time to hold no camera. Hey, Katie. Yeah, it's awesome. Have you done, I know Katie has sold, you should check out her channel and throw Katie a follow if you haven't. She does creative stuff, art. I know she's done some Perler beads and actually sold them. Hey Monoxide, how's it going? Hey, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I threw a post in our Beadsprite saying I was doing this today. See if anyone would come in and share some of their wisdom. Awesome, Katie. If you're still on when we finish streaming tonight, I'll show you shoot you a host. Oh no, Monoxide, did you just post it? That sounds awesome. Can you go ahead and post the link if you can. Other people can check it out. Hey Nick Wick, thanks for the follow. It's good to have you. That's a good response, AMA. Oh, awesome, Katie. Yeah, I know Katie's been struggling with streaming because OBS isn't particularly friendly with Mac, and most artists use Mac, so like you're kind of stuck. But they have anything interesting in the patch notes, Katie? I think this is going to be okay. It looks like it melted just fine. Don't see any beads that are off center. Hey Clear Monkey, how's it going? Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm gonna click on your Roxas sprite here once I finish this one. I think he's good. I'm gonna leave the oven iron plugged in just in case I need to go at it. Actually, it looks like the bloom I need a little bit more pressing here at the very top. Give it a quick, strong press. Try to make sure it's covered. Okay. Just doing a quick test before I pull this off. Hope no beads come off the parchment paper with it. Awesome. It looks really good. I'm really happy with this. Look how sweet this is. This was Kami and Sanguine suggested this. Pretty happy with that. So let me go flatten it. Remember, when you're removing it from the pegboard, be really careful. Don't just like grab an edge of it and pull up. Like, go to all the different edges and use your fingernails if you have to. Pry up just a little bit. Get it off the pegboard. Yeah, it's the masking tape method. I know that's recommended on our bead sprites. I don't know, does anyone in chat who does bead spriting, do you use the masking tape method? Can you give some information on it? I haven't tried it, but it looks like it would be pretty convenient, especially if you're doing a big project and need to save it, you know, multiple attempts. Katie, I was mentioning that you can warp boards, but I think I'll be okay. This is like, I don't know, 1/10 of the number of boards I have. When bead spreading was my serious hobby, every payday I would go and buy, you know, I'd spend like 20 bucks on Perler beads every 2 weeks for a year. So I have pegboards for days, I have beads for days. Yeah, so can you guys, so what can go wrong with the masking tape method, if anything? The reason I haven't done it is I'm worried that I'm not going to fully pick up the sprite and that the beads are all going to fall away. Whereas I can trust and be okay with losing some pegboards every now and then. I'll explain what Andrew is talking about there with the craft box here in a second. Alright, let's check it out. That looks awesome. That's really good. I'm excited to put that on the wall. Yeah, I'd be worried about beads popping off. That's the only reason I wouldn't do it. Or haven't done it yet. Alright, so I'm going to go put this guy underneath a heavy book to get him to flatten. He's already starting to, like I said, they're plastic, so they start to bend upward. So you put them under a book while they're still hot to get them to completely flatten. Right, I'm pretty stoked about that one. Yeah, so when you do the complex bead sprites that have lots of colors, they iron really well. They end up looking really good at the end. They're a little bit more of a pain to put together, but it's worth doing at the end of the day. So my last plan would be to start switching over to Final Fantasy 14 here, but I gotta put shit away first and feed the cats. So I'll stick around and chat with you guys before I update the game. If anyone had any other cool bead sprites they wanted to share that they've already done, go ahead and pop that in chat. Welcome to post links. Yeah, D-Rock, that looks good at the end of the day. I like it. Let me click on that Roxas. Yeah, so for me to get the holes to close all the way, I just put my... Oh, that's awesome. Nice. I have one of those same kind of desks too. I just put my iron on the highest heat setting and push down pretty hard until I see all of them close. Try opening these as they come in. Oh, awesome. Companion cube? That's pretty sick, man. That's pretty sick. I've seen guides for making that, but I haven't attempted it before. Did you have to use any, like, glue guns to make the companion cubes stick together, or did you, like, just, you know, set it up so that they lock in together? Gray had its own box. Pink got its own. Glue gunning, gotcha. Yeah, so Monoxide, how did you do? Did you do row by row for Roxas? I found that row by row is the safest way to do it. It saves you the most time in the long run, keeps you from making mistakes. Yeah, row by row I think is the way to go. I showed off 3 different methods today. We did color by color, row by row, and outline. And if you want my opinion, I suggest that you stick with row by row. You have to do some color changing while you're doing it, but it's so much safer in the long run if you make a mistake. You're not going to be stuck fixing it for a long time. If you get one of these cool, I'll show this. I said I wouldn't show it again, but once I put everything away, I'll show you my bead collection box you get on Container Store. Yeah, try the bead pen. I picked it up and I tried it this morning and I couldn't get used to it. So I decided not to do it on stream, but it looks cool, so if someone can make it work, if you end up using the bead pen and you enjoy it, let me know. Right now I'm just using my fingers though, because I'm most adept at that. Thanks for the follow, Dead Pixel. Thanks again for hanging out too and sharing your deets. Yeah, so here's my collection again. In the webcam in the bottom right corner. Get one of these if you're getting really serious into bead spriting and you have a lot of colors. Go to the Container Store, get one of these, store all your colors in it. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. Okay, so all my colors are put away. I think that the Warrior of Light's probably good to go now. Yeah, he's all flat. Let's put him on the wall. Cat hype indeed. Yeah, so I have the tweezers, which I recommend that you use, but I don't think you need them to place. I think I personally at least place a little bit faster if I use my fingers. It's good for solving when you make mistakes, though. You can use a few tape bits on here. He's going to be facing away from everybody else, but that's cool. He's too cool for school. The benefit is you can flip the sprite by, you know, just literally flipping the sprite, but I like the side that looks more melted so you can't see the holes in the center. Yeah, sweet. So he's going to go back here. Let me take a look again at my setup. Think out what actually is visible on my wall. Just put him right under the Black Mage. Awesome. Yeah, so he looks really good. Big fan of that guy. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to be taking the next couple minutes to go feed the cats, and then I'm going to spin up for Final Fantasy XIV, which we're playing tonight until 7:30 Pacific time. So give me little bit here to get all that set up. I'm going to change the game title and we'll be good to go. If you want to see Beadsprites again, we will do it on the channel. I'm just going to add it as a new donation incentive for another session. Thank you for following, Monoxide. It's good to have you. Okay. Sorry if the music just got super loud. Let me type a quick message letting everybody know what's up with Finalizing 14. I'm going to throw up my BRB real quick. Maybe I'll opening a Final Fantasy 14 play if you want to check out the opening cutscene and all that fun stuff. My wife's thought virus is spreading. You're a towel. There you go, Sanguine. Story of my life, right? We'll do Leisure Suit Larry eventually. That's a good game.
Connected.
Slightly inappropriate, but it is a good game. Okay, I'm updating the stream title now, guys. Not sure if that's true, Amy. I think Gilmore Girls came up because I can't change user accounts on Netflix, but sure.
Encompassing the westernmost of the three great continents, there lies a realm embraced by gods and forged by heroes. Her name, Eorzea. The annals of Eorzean history chart the rise of a succession of great civilizations, each one enjoying an age of peace, the Astral Eras. To date, all have proven ephemeral. In the year 1572 of the sixth and most recent Astral Era, the Northern Empire of Garlemald amassed a great army at the heart of Eorzea, seeking dominion over all. Rising in desperate resistance, the forces of the Eorzean Alliance met their would-be conquerors in the field. Yet, even as the battle raged, the lesser moon, Dalamur, was plucked from the heavens through imperial machination. From its core emerged the elder primal Bahamut, who unleashed his fury upon the realm. The devastation brought Eorzea to its knees and the era to its end. 5 years have come and gone. The light of life still shines upon Eorzea. Man labors tirelessly to raise himself from the calamity's ruin. The realm is forever changed, a stranger to him once more. Yet heedless of what lies ahead, he shall press on. Spurred by the promise of peace and prosperity. Amid this period of great change, an adventurer arrives in Eorzea, one whose tale is yet